Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet. I will be chairing the Transportation Committee today until Councilmember Byron Amos gets here. But in the meantime, we do not have a quorum yet, so we will wait one more council member and we will get started. Actually, I wonder if we can do like public comment, or can we start on that? We just won't do any of the voting items. So we don't have to adopt the agenda. I am joined today by Councilmember Alex Wan and Dustin Hillis, and we are prepared to listen to public comment until we are at a quorum. So again, this is the Transportation Committee. Today is Wednesday, Valentine's Day, February 14th, and we are ready to start public comment. Do we have a list? I'll call up the first person signed up. So the list is interesting because I see council member names on the list. I see Councilmember Keisha Waits, Councilmember Byron Amos, Councilmember Antonio Lewis. Does that mean that they're preparing to have public comment today? I don't understand.
Our understanding is that somebody filled in their names on that sheet. So
what's the purpose of doing that?
You have to ask whoever did it.
Can you come up to the mic so I can understand what this is supposed to mean? I want to make sure I can accommodate you. Got it. I don't know. That's not exactly correct. Okay. Okay. So what I will say is council member names is not the way to yield time.
Okay.
You would have to have someone in person here to yield time with.
Okay.
I do think that you have some that will do that.
Have extra people here if you want.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so for that reason, I'm going to send the list back and you guys can fill in a name for yield time. Are you Valerie?
I am
Handy?
Valerie.
Carrie?
Carrie. Valerie
Okay.
Handy Carrie.
So that's what we'll do.
And so Councilwoman Collier or Collier?
Overstreet.
Overstreet. May I pass these out? I wanted for each one of the council members
Absolutely.
to have
Someone
one.
will grab those
Yes.
from you.
And it's 33, and it'll be significant once I share.
Of course. Okay. We'll just change those names out. And in the meantime, we will start with this portion of the list with Rebecca. We have Councilmember Amir Faroki here, so we will actually follow the agenda as printed, and then we'll get to public comment once we get this all settled. So thank you for joining us today, Transportation Committee. I would like a motion for adoption of the agenda. Moved by Hillis, second by Wan. Please prepare the vote. The agenda is adopted, 4 yeas, 0 nays, and I will approve, I motion to approve the minutes. Second by Juan. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is closed.
Okay, thank you. So because Chair Amos isn't here, we will not adopt our goals and objectives today. We'll let him decide on how to do that. So we still have more time to get those to him if we haven't done that already. So we're moving on to F, which is at public comment. Do we have the updated list for public comment? And in Transportation Committee, do they receive 2 minutes or 3 minutes per person? 2 minutes? 3 minutes? Okay. So, and we do allow yield time. I just want to make sure that I'm doing what Councilmember Amos usually does. So each person that comes to the mic, you introduce yourself and you get 3 minutes for public comment. And as such, we'll start with number 1 with yielded time from what I understand, and that's Ms. Valerie. Ms. Valerie, let's see how much time she would have. Ms. Valerie Handy Carey, you have 6 minutes. Okay?
I will try to speak fast, but clearly and succinctly. First of all, I just want to say thank God for waking me up and allowing me to see the dawning of this new day in spite of what I may be experiencing. Again, my name is Valerie Lynn Handy Carey, and I'm emphasizing the Lynn for a reason. I'm here on behalf of my daughter, Brittany Patrice Glover, and Brittany was killed September 19, 2022 on Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway in Finley Drive. And I'm here, and that's a picture of Brittany that someone drew for me, because the person who killed her has still not been arrested. So we're still trusting and believing God to reveal who that person is. But what I wanted to share today was in person to ask you, each committee member, if you would vote for the legislation and the renaming of the street on Finley Avenue where she laid down her life. That's all I have right now, to uplift her legacy and to honor her name so that her dying is not in vain. I don't want the fact that she was run down and no one has been arrested, no leads as to who did this have come forth so far. Brittany came here with her job. She was a new flight attendant. She had just graduated August 29th. And she got here on a Friday, and she was dead by Sunday night, early Monday morning. That's how quick. She didn't even get to sign in for work. Brittany was my only daughter, and I emphasize my middle name as Lynn because one of the things we talked about as mother and daughter, if she ever had a child, she would name that child Parker Lynn. So I was robbed of that. My only daughter. I don't get to look into the eyes of my granddaughter. For those who had grandchildren, I don't get to see her walk down the aisle. I don't get that. All I have is this, to come before you and I ask the Lord to speak, allow me to speak from my heart to yours, so that you would be moved to approve that legislation, to rename that street where her blood paid the price, and we don't have anything else. And so I'm at your mercy, asking you to allow that to be a reminder in that community that a real person lost their life, and to bring about the pedestrian awareness and safety, to bring more crosswalks, more traffic lights, more traffic cameras, because had those things been in place, I might know who killed my daughter. I don't know any more today than I did when it happened September 19, 2022. And when I first came to City Council, I said, how many more people have to die before change is brought about in that community? I have to think about the people who with disabilities, blind people, people in wheelchairs, walking. How are they going to get across those streets? Brittany was a 5'9", 33-year-old young woman, full of life, following her dream to be a flight attendant and to be the best that she can be, and it was wiped out. And the fact that that person still has the opportunity to kill again if they haven't already, because we don't know who did it. And by her name being on that street, it will be a reminder to not only them, because I know that person has come back through there again. I know they have. But the people in that community to say, this young lady lost her life. Every time somebody walks past Brittany Parkway, Brittany Drive, whatever you wanted, but Brittany Glover, her name is there to remind them of what happened and for them to be more cautious about it. And so again, I just ask you, and these colors that I'm wearing today represent the country of Jamaica, and excuse me because I'm a little bit nervous. She and I talked about taking a mother-daughter trip there. She never got that opportunity. So these colors is why I'm wearing the green, the yellow, the black, to represent who she was, her personality. She loved that culture so much that she learned the language. She was able to speak patois fluently. And every time she would speak it to me, all I could do was laugh because I couldn't give it back and I didn't understand a word. But that was her personality. That's who she was. If she saw something and she wanted to do it, she could. And the fact that I don't get to embrace, I don't get to share any of those moments with her, those first. And so I'm here to ask you once again to not allow her life, her dying, to be in vain, and to vote for that legislation to rename that street at Finley Drive, Donnelly Hollowell Parkway. So thank you.
It isn't customary for us to usually comment during public comment. Thank you for sharing your story. I will tell you that we are not at the deliberation of the legislation at this time. I just want you to understand process. And this is the first that I've heard in detail of what actually has happened, but the council member has to come to us and speak to us about this. I've not heard from the council member. Has anyone else? And I'm not sure if she's already spoken with, she or he, I think.
Who is the council? Who is the
Okay, this is Waits. I'm not sure if she's spoken with ATL DOT yet either, but I will find out during the legislation time when we get to that portion on the agenda. But I just didn't want you to have unclear expectations of what happens today. But thank you very much for sharing your story.
I want to raise the issue whenever it happens.
Absolutely.
I just want people to know, and I'm still asking the community to come forward. Somebody saw something. You know, the fact that my daughter laid in the street dying with no help.
I understand.
And I have to wrestle with that, the fact that I wasn't there. My only daughter, you think about that. In a new city where she's starting a job and it's just her and the people around and nobody's coming forth. This is all that I have.
Okay.
The fact that had she been an animal, even though they left her in the street like an animal, the community would be more outraged if it was a cat or a dog. But the fact that the city, Atlanta, Fulton County is silent, that I'm still waiting for it to be revealed who took her life.
Well, again, I will speak with the council member, and I'll also try to find out more information. But thank you again for coming to share your story, Ms. Valerie Handy Carey. And we're going to move to the next public comment person. And thank you very much also for this beautiful pen.
You're welcome.
Next up is Davita Huntley. I actually know Davita. I don't see her. We'll move on to Terry Bailey. In the meantime, we've been joined by Councilmember Antonio Lewis. Welcome. And Councilmember Keisha Waits. So she'll speak. Mr.
Ms. Overstreet,
Yes.
Those two people donated time. I notified them. Nobody was out here. They notified them. I think Mr. David from the office also notified you that they were there.
Okay. You know what? He actually did alert me. And that's fine.
They waited to almost the last moment, but then I had some more people come donate. Just in case you wouldn't allow it, I had a plan B in place, but they...
Okay, let's go with plan A.
Okay.
Okay, and so that would give you, how many minutes? 9 minutes?
9 minutes.
Okay, you have
That's
9
the next
minutes.
time.
DeJuan Robinson.
A great morning. A happy Valentine's Day to all the ladies in here if you celebrate it. All the women in the crowd also. I would like to start off by giving an apology to the head lead attorney for the city, Nina Hickson. She and I had a conversation, and I was wrong on a thing or two, and I accused her of something that after our deliberation, come to find out that I was wrong. So I want to give a public apology. Since I mentioned her name in the public, I apologize privately. I also am man enough to apologize publicly. So this is the kind of stuff that we advocate for, things like this, right? Trying to find some justice for people that feel like they don't get justice. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King, who won a Nobel Peace Prize, and half the world say he was undeserving of it. They call him an agitator, educated man from Morehouse, an alpha man, graduated summa cum laude. I don't speak about myself, but I too graduated summa cum laude. I was on a court call the other day, right? And my character was in question. The lawyer of this young lady said that nothing good come from the projects, Antonio. She said, oh, when he mentioned Bowen Homes, all we think about is violence. Nothing good was mentioned over there, Dustin Hill. It's there, but. And I felt offended by that. We spent 2 hours on a court call because the young lady, Ms. Jaffarell, took offense of me saying that she wasn't a real AKA because she just paid her money. And I just feel, to be honest with you, my very first time I've been in front of this young lady, I sense evil, Mr. Faroki. I sense the arrogance, to be honest with you, I've never seen in my life. I sense the sense of arrogance, evil, and nastiness that I've never seen, and that disturbed me. Because this is the young lady that is third in charge at the airport. And what we have to be faced with behind closed doors, and I'm sure many of you probably encountered that. It's not right, man. There are so many people that want to speak out but afraid of retaliation. There's a gentleman family, and I'm sure the airport is aware of this. He was fired by this young lady and her team. This guy committed suicide 4 months later. They lost everything. The family is so hurt, Ms. Oshie, they don't even want to come down here and deal with that. But it's on record. But we turn a blind eye to these real life situations, man. And I just don't get it. I just found out the other day that MARTA tore down a black community to build Lenox train station. We can't undo it, but how dare we allow that? Come on, I didn't know that. Buckhead was filled with a black community, Mr. Juan. And they pushed the people out into the west side because they were the only people that would give them, a loan for their house, Mr. Dustin Hill. Is over there where you at, that was the only side of town that black folks could live. My family was from Buttermilk Bottom and Summerhill, which made Bowen home. Mr. Bowen, Mr. Hillis, was a fighter for black people. And for the record, Ms. Jaffarell and your lawyer, the first projects in America was called Clark Howell projects that were made for white families. For the record, government housing were made for white families who husband was out fighting war and couldn't be home to take care of the family, so the government wanted to give them some aid. Clark Howell, later called Techwood, right across from the Georgia Tech institution, the prestigious Georgia Tech, was a government housing for white folks, then later given to black folks. So we're gonna play this game. We need to be educated, and let's not be, deceived by misinformation. Because they didn't want to give us loan for houses, they put us in public housing. Miss Attorney for Jaffarell, that's not a place where bad people turn out to. Drugs was dropped off in our communities and guns. So when you put that in a community filled with that, yeah, you're gonna get some violence to it. But what about the other side of America? The Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, where they was bombed and destroyed. Was it violence there? No, it was not. It was destroyed. It was Auburn Avenue, where we had 23 black millionaires and the only black hotel in the world. Was that a violent place to live? No, it was not. So there were some people down there that didn't agree with Dr. Martin Luther King, Mr. Faroki, because he marched us over here with the finances. We didn't come back with it. Some people, if you take them to the Ritz-Carlton, they might not want to go back to the Auburn Avenue because it's so pretty in the Ritz-Carlton. And that's when my man said, I've entered my people into a burning building, because we went over there with the finance, but we didn't come back with it. Everything is about economics. So yes, I get outraged when I feel like people that's born and raised in Atlanta who say, hey, we want to fix this and do this, but when we get in here, we don't do all we can to help the people that's born and raised here, even the people that move here. You have a sworn duty to uphold and help these people. So yeah, I get outraged when it comes down. Yeah, I might come down here and cuss a few times. Don't make me no bad person. MLK cursed, Malcolm X cursed, Marco Garvey's here in Newark. Come on, man. So we cannot allow people to play these games. Freedom of speech is all we have. Mr. David Walker used to come down here and say all kind of things. I grew up watching Hosea Williams and the great Alley Pat. That's what I grew up on. So we're not gonna play these games, Ms. Overstreet, and sometimes I don't expect you to get on camera and chastise some people behind closed doors. Sometimes let them know that, hey man, we cannot do these things, and this person have a right, you know what I'm saying, to speak whether we agree with it or not. We have a right to be heard. You know what I'm saying, right? And if you're gonna say in your report you're the third highest person at the city, then I have a right to criticize your work job. I don't come down here and get religious, but I do think somewhere in the Bible that God said you judge a man by the fruit that they bear. So if you're gonna be a pastor, then you get judged on how you pastor in a church. If you're gonna be a general manager or a deputy general manager or a mayor or city councilman, that's your job. I have a right, anybody have a right to judge you on that performance. You chose to do that, not me, not us. You chose to do that, so hey, take what come with it. Speaking about kids and family, hey, that's off limits. But you chose to do these things, so you have a right, I'm saying, to be judged by that. And by the way, sir, I seen the video this morning. You handled that very well. You should have a class on de-escalation because you handled that very well. So I commend you on that because that could have gone left. So thank you for that. But I just wanted to say, this young lady here lost her daughter. You know, I know Ms. Overstreet. And Mr. Hillis, I do apologize because I thought that was your district. It's not your district. At the top is Mr. Byron Amos' district. I didn't speak that publicly, but I kind of whispered in her ear that I think that's your district because she said Dunley Hollowell. So it's not your district. And I do appreciate you being attentive when they spoke on it. I do appreciate that. So I just want to say, as we move forward, the World Cup coming, I graduated high school in '94. I didn't get any money from the '96 Olympics, but there's a lot of folks that got rich in Atlanta from the '96 Olympics. There's money, you know what I'm saying, that's going to be coming to our communities, you know what I'm saying, for this 2026 World Cup. We should be able to get some piece of the pie. Let black folks know what type of companies you need to create right now to put yourself in line, you know what I'm saying, to even be considered getting it. All we want is access. If we don't get it, okay. We just want access, Mr. Farrow. That's all black folks have always asked for, access. Crime is up, you know what I'm saying, due to poverty. Poverty is up due to nothing is available for black folks in this town, you know what I'm saying, in the other city. But in Atlanta, it's an atrocity to me because we got majority black city councilman and a black mayor. So yes, and we got a black county commissioners over there with a black commissioner. So yes, it's real bad for me when we got black folks in this town who want to say we black Hollywood and black Mecca, but we forgetting about black folks. Yeah, I found a problem with that. Am I wrong for that? Am I wrong for saying Atlanta is a part city? We're #1 in America for income inequality, but we want to brag on everything else. I'm going to leave you. Let me win over.
I'm sitting here just all enthralled. I forgot about the time.
And I do appreciate.
You're overtime.
Listen, I do appreciate that because sometimes you sit up there and you may not. So I do appreciate that today.
Councilmember Lewis.
Hey, DeJuan, man, you were preaching today. I'm not preaching, but you gave a real history lesson. I appreciate you for coming down. I appreciate you for still standing up. Fighting for freedom of speech is a real thing. When you watch the video, you know they're gonna do me a little bit worse. So keep watching, man. I got pulled over a couple of times that week, and so just keep watching. I'm gonna keep standing up, though. I ain't scared. I'm still here. I'll be doing a de-escalation training with Chief Sherbaum over at Roselle Fan real soon, so we can talk about, and I'll play the video myself. So thank you.
Absolutely, bro.
Okay, thank you for your public comment, Mr. DeJuan. Moving on to Sakethia Morris. Is she here?
I think she's afraid to get up and speak. She's a bit shy today, but
Is that a yes or no, Ms. Morris? You have 3 minutes Just take your time.
Good morning, everybody. I am a little nervous. I've never spoken in front of everybody like this. I'm sorry if I do choke up on anything. But I feel like we should be able to exercise our First Amendment. I feel like no TPO should be taken out on anyone for the way they feel or what's going on. Nobody should silence anybody about the way they feel. Some people might be a little bit more, get in there and stuff like that. But I feel like a person should not be silenced at all. So I'm sorry, you guys. I'm so nervous. I'm sorry. Yeah, I feel like anybody should exercise their First Amendments. And that's why we have them, for us to exercise them. So if I feel adamant about something or about you or whatever, you still shouldn't silence me for the way I feel about you or you feel about me. There's just a feeling. We should be able to agree to disagree. Nothing should go further than the agreements. So, that's why I'm up here we should be able to exercise our First Amendments.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank
And we
you.
stand for nonviolence.
Yes, we do. Nonviolence.
Yes, nonviolence.
Nonviolence. All right, so our next speaker is Joy
you.
Clemens.
That was me. I'm sorry. She didn't want to speak, so I spoke. And, just
Okay, so you're Joy.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Sakithia said no.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of public comment. And with that, we're going to move on to... Well, Rebecca, so your note says that you were yielding for...
Valerie said she didn't need that.
Got it. Okay, so Rebecca Serna.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Serna. I'm the executive director at Propel ATL, and I'm here today to speak to two initiatives that are about the dignity and lives of people, even when and especially when we're outside of our cars. Brittany Glover was killed crossing Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway in 2022. You heard her mother, a remarkable woman, speak movingly about her life and the type of person she was. We're here to speak in support of the legislation to rename Finley Street in honor of Brittany Glover. Honoring her life in this way will be meaningful for her family. It will be meaningful for people walking in Atlanta, and it's the right thing to do. But it is literally the least we can do. Pass this legislation, but don't stop there, please. Push the State Department of Transportation to extend the current safety project underway to the west of this intersection, to continue it further to connect with downtown. And then keep looking for ways to make streets safer. Ensure that when our City Department of Transportation repaves streets, it includes safety features in those resurfacing projects. The second initiative I'd like to speak to is also about pedestrian safety. This is the legislation to prohibit right turns on red in downtown, Midtown, and Castleberry Hill. This legislation, if passed, will save lives. It's the right response to the city's unnecessary and growing epidemic of traffic fatalities and injuries. Recently, the Atlanta Department of Transportation looked at 65 crash reports associated with serious injury and fatal crashes that happened involving right turns at signalized intersections. More than 40% of these crashes were the result of car drivers turning right at red lights. What's more, our research has found clear racial disparities in pedestrian fatalities. More than 2/3 of Atlanta's 2022 pedestrian fatalities occurred in Black neighborhoods, because these places were designed to speed cars through, not to protect the lives of people outside of cars. And if you're worried about delaying drivers by a few seconds, the Institute of Transportation Engineers found that banning right on red turns makes intersections safer, and not only that, this policy change created only minor impacts to traffic operations. If we can't spare a few seconds to keep our fellow humans safe, what are we even doing? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Serna. And I do believe the other two that are here were yielded time. So we're going to move on now to presentations. That will bring up ATL DOT. Commissioner Solomon Cavis.
Good morning, all. Solomon Cavanis, ATL DOT. Happy Valentine's Day. Seems like we we find each other together during these holidays. But I'm going to move this along and wish you all very special Valentine's Day. And quick shout out to my girls, who I'll be busy working to please tonight. So thank you for the opportunity for Atlanta Department of Transportation to provide our quarterly report. The timing of this report is interesting considering we were together in December, but this gives us an opportunity to address and focus on some of those outstanding questions. So what you have is a package that speaks to the questions with responses in front of you, i.e. the organizational chart, et cetera. So we've done substantial work to address your questions, and also we'll make ourselves available to review this information in this package with you. So I'll jump into the presentation. We'll talk about programs and initiatives, capital delivery program, community and public engagement events, state of good repair, and other updates. So, of course, our mission includes design, delivery, and maintenance of an efficient multimodal transportation system that provides Atlanta residents, commuters, and visitors safe and equitable access within the city in alignment with our Atlanta Transportation Plan. It is aligned with the mayor's 4 pillars: one safe city, a city of opportunity for all, a city built for the future, and effective ethical government. And I'd just like to share our leadership structure. I'd like to introduce Ms. Lisa Glover, who's come on as my chief of staff to help us with our operations and moving our programs along. Ms. Glover is sitting here to my right, and she hails from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where she managed transportation department, and she's been a great addition to our team. So,
I'm sorry, she stood up and I looked over and a couple of my colleagues did not see her. Can you stand again?
yeah, so we're very happy, and we can schedule time to make sure that you're familiar with Ms. Glover. What you'll see on the slide here is our Chief of Administration, Pierre Johnson, who's here with us, our Deputy Commissioner of Strategy and Planning, Betty Smoot-Madison, the illustrious, Ms. Lenore Bromberg, who's our Deputy Commissioner of Engineering, an amazing addition to our team. Thank you for joining us, Lenore. Mr. Greg Moore, who you're all familiar with, Deputy Commissioner of Capital Delivery, and Alan Smith, our Transportation Infrastructure Management Deputy Commissioner, and all of which are in the audience. So if you give a quick wave, this is a very talented team, one of the most talented I've ever worked with. So we're bringing our synergy to the city of Atlanta for the better. So I'll just speak on our programs and initiatives. Spoke about our comprehensive transportation plan, which will get kicked off this year. We're working with our partners in the region to make sure we focus on our bike master planning, our micromobility programming, looking at our street topologies and different aspects of our transportation programming over the next 5 years. This plan has not been updated since 2015, so we are about due. So we're looking forward to engaging with all of you and making sure that we can address the needs of all of our districts and city, also the region, in coordination with GDOT and our other partners. I just want to give a quick moment to recognize Ms. Brittany Glover. There was a event held on Donald Hollowell back in September, whereby ATL DOT participated. Councilmember Waits led and helped organize that recognition, and our hearts go out to her family, her mother. We know our city is better than that, so we're working every day to try to improve safety for the lives of our children and the city. So our goal is to reach 0 traffic fatalities and serious injuries due to crashes by year 2040, and that's based on our data. But one more fatality is too many, so we're doing all we can to activate the strategies that we've developed. So we have an action plan that will be published this year, and we are incorporating all of our strategies within that action plan. So year to date in 2023, the city experienced 78 fatalities, not all of which were on City of Atlanta jurisdiction streets. I need to note that GDOT is responsible or has jurisdiction for many of our major arterials, including Donald Hollowell. So we have a very close relationship with Georgia Department of Transportation, whereby our safety teams meet on a monthly basis. And I will say that we were 20% down from year 2022. A number of factors contributed to that, but it speaks to the hard work and what we've been doing, although 78 fatalities are 78 too many. So I'll jump to Fare Free MARTA pilot. That pilot has come to an end where many employees were given free access for MARTA for 6 months, starting back in August. And I'd like to apologize, or rather share my remorse to those employees, because they are very unhappy that it came to an end. But it's a pilot. There's a beginning and an end, and we made sure that we got the data and worked with MARTA to identify how Fare Free could be applied within the city for Atlanta's future. So we're working with MARTA to think about get feedback, and think about next steps as part of this pilot. And just a quick note, we may be bringing this pilot back on for our employees soon, so stand by. Jump to capital delivery. So you'll see here we have the DEAM program status, and Mr. Chris Davis from DEAM, Interim Commissioner, is here, and he can speak to the numbers for our Moving Atlanta Forward program. Chris.
Good morning, members of the Transportation Committee. Chris Davis, Interim Commissioner for Department of Enterprise Access Management. Thank you for the opportunity this morning to kind of share with you some of the progress that we have with the Moving Atlanta Forward program. We just did a presentation recently with the Oversight Committee, and now we're just updating the document to show where we're making some progress. So if you notice in the last presentation that we did, we have a base program of 12 projects. 4 of those have not started yet. Those are some of the programs that's not in the first batch. The planning and scoping section, we got 2 projects in that section. We have back in August in the report, we had 5 programs that was in the design phase, 0 in procurement, 1 in construction. So moving forward in January 2024, you can see that the first 2 slots haven't changed, but we have moved project from engineering design into procurement. Procurement phase for us is where we start to permitting, we start pricing, and we go into task order, and right after that we enter into construction. We do have 1 project that's in construction that about 50% complete right now. That's the Department of Corrections, and doing some work there, and nothing that's in the closeout. So what we have here is just a design rendering of the different fire stations that we have. The one to your upper left, that's Fire Station 30, which is the one that's just moved into procurement. On the right, in the upper right, that's the EMS station, which is a basic design for the EMS project that we have on our program. In the lower left photo there, what you see is the police precinct zone 4. And then what you see is Fire Station 26. So Fire Station 30 to your upper left is the first fire station that's going to hit. Fire Station 26 is coming right after that. So those 2 projects are expected to go into the procurement phase this year. As I spoke before, with the base program that we have, this just speaks to the vertical projects that we just talked about. 911 Center, the Center for Diversion and Services, Fire Station 30, 31, 25, 26, Emergency EMS, Zone 4, and Council Member Discretionary Fund projects that we'll be working on. Project status, as you just kind of spoke before, 911 Center, that's in the planning phase right now. Center for Diversions and Construction, Fire Station 30 is the one that we just moved into procurement. Fire Station 26 is still in design, but it's closely coming in right behind that. Fire Station 31 is also in the latter phases of design, along with 25. And EMS 6, again, which is under consideration for the different locations. So we do have a base plan that we will be installing once we get the location where we're going to do that. And again, Zone 4 replacement is in the design phase. So that's what we have today. And if there's any questions, here to answer those, or we can respond later. Thank you.
Perhaps we come back to questions. I see eye contact from some of our council members. So I will move this along and bring up our Commissioner of Parks and Rec to the podium to speak to the DPR program.
Great. Chair Overstreet and members of the Transportation Committee, thank you for having me here today. So the Department of Parks and Recreation is hard at work completing over 71 projects as part of our Moving Atlanta Forward bond program. As you can see on the screen, last August we had 37 projects that were not started. However, we did have over 34 projects that were underway, so almost 50% of our projects were underway. Currently, we're at over 50% of our projects have either been started. They're in the planning or scoping phase, they're under construction, and we have 4 that are completed. So the Department of Parks and Recreation is hard at work getting our projects done. Here is just a list of some of those projects that either are underway or have been completed. They range from small scale improvements, to replacing bridges, to replacing playgrounds, upgrading lightings in fields. What we focused on in our batch 1 were smaller projects that were shovel ready and or life and safety issues, as well as some long lead items. So for instance, the HVAC replacement at Bessie Branham was a critical item because we didn't have conditioned air at that location, so we needed to get that done. Also, the pool pack at CT Martin was failed and was causing condensation in the pool area and causing impacts on ceiling tiles, so we had to get that replaced. Several of the lighting projects are also long lead items, so those items were ordered last year and they'll be completed this fall. So like Wilson Mill Park, as well as South Bend Park, didn't have field lights, so kids couldn't play in the evenings and in the evenings for their football program. So those are some of the items that we are working on and have accomplished, and happy to answer any questions. Back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cutler. And on to Atlanta Department of Transportation. So in our previous discussion, or the December quarterly, we were asked to provide greater detail as it relates to the audit and the projects, much of which are within Moving Atlanta Forward, are within the Atlanta Department of Transportation wheelhouse. So this just provides a snapshot in time of the progress that we've made. And you'll see there's been substantial progress relative to our activations. What we've done is improve the nomenclature to speak to what activation represents, and you'll see that planning and scoping currently includes 34 projects. We have engineering design, 12 projects, and 3 that are currently in construction, and 1 is in final punch list. We've also included the Renew T-SPLOST 1.0 program and other capital delivery projects, which we are partnering with our CIDs and others to bring to bear. So this chart just provides an update on or greater detail in terms of the projects and the districts in which they lie. We also have the planning, scoping, engineering, design, and construction, and this just includes batch 1, which was part of the 2023 activation. I'll move on to our batch 2 activations. So we've been in contact and communication with council and have found efficiencies in our program to make sure that if there's an opportunity to get some of the other projects within the Moving Atlanta Forward program moving, we took advantage of that for contracting, procurement, et cetera. So we have those planning projects, rather scoping of those projects, many of which are familiar: Chattahoochee Avenue sidewalk installation, Mount Perrin resurfacing, which will soon go into construction. And we have a number of projects that are in design. Cascade Road Safe Streets, Phase 2. We're looking forward to getting those designs out and getting out into the community to get feedback. Monroe Drive Safe Streets is a project that's of great interest, and South Boulevard Safe Streets. So those are progressing finely, but we are working with you on a regular basis. And also DeKalb Avenue, Decatur Street Phase 2 Safe Streets is currently in design. So really exciting time in Atlanta Department of Transportation. These charts give you an update, or rather provide greater detail as it relates to the Renew T-SPLOST 1.0 program. We've mentioned previously that we're doing triple duty to make sure that we get that Renew program out the door, and we're not prioritizing the current program over the Renew program. So this gives you an idea of where we are in terms of design and engineering and procurement. So that program is substantially in a really good place, and we're substantially moving that along. This also speaks to what's in procurement and construction. So you'll see the Morris Mill 2 intersections along Morris Mill. You'll see traffic control on Marietta Street. You'll see Cascade Road Phase 1, obviously, and DeKalb Avenue safety improvements, which is coming to a close. This chart provides an update on our LMIG, Local Maintenance Improvement Grant funding that we get from the state, and we're bringing that to bear. Should be finishing that. We only have about 7 miles as of today. We'll have about 5 miles left on this program, but we're in communication with the council and making sure that we're getting feedback in terms of punch lists and any improvements to paving that's been done, but also thinking about how we accelerate this year's paving program to include streets that may be added to last year's program. So we're wrapping this up. Capital projects update, DeKalb Avenue safety improvements. We are wrapping that up. We're 95% done. We're making sure the safety improvements and the punch lists, which I consider the drainage inlets and some of the other things that were overlooked, are taken care of to support the community. So looking forward to getting that closed out. Here are a few pictures of the approach to Moreland, and I'll also speak to Cascade Road. So we've gotten considerable activity started out on Cascade Road. We're accelerating the drainage work, and we have some good news to share in March with the community about making sure that we are focusing on the entire stretch of the program. Here are a few pictures of the activity out on Cascade Road, and that project is moving along. Howell Mill Complete Streets, we had a groundbreaking this past winter, and a couple months ago, and that has really gotten off to a great start, and we're accelerating delivery of Howell Mill Complete Streets. Here are a few pictures of contractors out on site, and I'll jump into a community public engagement event. So as part of Moving Atlanta Forward, we've had a ribbon cutting for the bike lanes on MLK. We are looking forward to improving the connectivity within the downtown bike lane network with Forsyth currently being repaved, and we will make those connections to MLK with the cycle tracks. And we also have Howell Mill Complete Street groundbreaking, which I mentioned back in December. So we have a number of community engagement activities that took place back in 2023, but many more to come, to include Cascade, Monroe, Complete Streets, and South Boulevard will be returning to the community. And many of those design projects that were listed on the previous charts include community engagement. So that number will tick up in coming months. So I'll just skip over to State of Good Repair. This provides a snapshot of our SLAs and our metrics for 2023 to present. And you'll see that we have a number of challenges related to capacity and operations, but we are strategically thinking about how we take care of those requests. Pothole Posse is trending upwards. We are efficiently moving up to 41 potholes per day. The goal is 30. We've increased, or rather doubled our crews out on the roadway, and that's showing great results. And other updates. This gives a snapshot of our hiring, and it speaks to some of our strategies related to our hiring. So I know hiring has been an ongoing discussion, and we have great news about project managers that we are onboarding within the next month and working with HR to make sure that we have capacity to deliver on behalf of the city. And with that, I will say thank you and open it up for questions. And I have all my colleagues behind me to support.
I see you
Thank
have
you.
your posse. So, colleagues, anyone have any questions? Let's see, let me look at the queue. Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you, Vice Chair Overstreet. So my suggestion to keep them from coming back and forth, I had a few questions for Interim Commissioner Davis and Commissioner Cutler. So if they want to come up to the mic, I'll address them first so you can take a breather, Commissioner Cavanis. You did most of the presentation.
Okay.
Start with Interim Commissioner Davis on the Dean program status sheet. What was the one, over this 5-month period between the two charts, what was the one project you brought to procurement? And then what is the challenge with, I know these are large projects, what's the challenge with getting 5 months and we've only brought one project to procurement?
So the basic difference there is just, this is where we did the initial design phases for most of these projects. So that's what took the longest in that piece of it. The other projects behind those, because they will have a replica of the design, and so that's why the other stations that's coming right behind those are really close, because once we complete that, then we move into a site of justice. So that becomes a lot bit quicker to go into the procurement phase of it.
And then the final question on the Dean projects, and I don't know you present to FEC as well, so we may save a lot of this for that, but the issue that I brought up with your predecessor multiple times is why the city of Atlanta is paying $12 to $16 million to build 3 bay fire stations, yet we see our partners in DeKalb County and Cobb County and Sandy Springs building like or even sometimes better fire stations for anywhere from what I've seen $6.5 to $9 million. And instead of the pushback, when I bring that up, I would really appreciate Dean looking into that. I know there was a lot of discussion when Mayor Dickens was appointed to the public-private partnership chair of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, that was going to be a route that we were going to look to for cost reduction. So, I mean, we're trying to move towards a standard fire station, understand that, but is that something you're looking into as to how we can cut costs and be like our other metro partners in getting those costs down?
So to answer your question is yes. So there are some fundamental differences between the different programs, but I'll dig more into that and actually provide some information to you. We can get together and have a conversation and just kind of show where there may be some differences in what may drive the cost in some locations and kind of go from there.
All right, and just lastly, I know we touched on it a few days ago, but we're trying to have that ribbon cutting on 22 a little sooner than July, right?
That's the goal. We definitely pushing up on that to see if we can move that. I think we have some opportunity there, but we'll keep you updated on that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Our next speaker. Oh, you yield? Oh, you want to? Oh, got it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Commissioner Cutler, just a few requests. On the citywide projects on your list, can we just get a list of the citywide ADA improvements? I guess those are specific to parks and the cameras in parks. What has been appropriated already? What has been constructed or, or planned there, and any funds that are left?
Will do.
Thank you. And DOT, let's see. Thank you for all the packet of information that you provided. That I know the
You're welcome,
we haven't
sir.
officially adopted it yet, but some of those are in our goals and objectives. You mentioned resurfacing, and I know we have been waiting for some time. I believe it may be contracted out or about to be, but our PCI data is, I think, over 5 years old at this point. So number one, when can we expect that to be presented to this committee or completed? And then unlike prior administrations, taking that data and crafting an actual 5-10-year resurfacing plan based on those PCI scores.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember. We are currently contracting out the survey work with one of our consultant firms, and the timing is great because we're also doing our comprehensive transportation plan, so that will feed the comprehensive transportation plan so that we can take a smart approach to how we pave around the city, and also take advantage of federal funds and state funds that are out there for local governments. So the timing is right for us to get an update on that information. We're building the asset management system on the back end of that, so we cover all of our assets, and we'll work with all council members to give input as we develop and design our next LMIG program for the long term. So if you think about the priority roadways, which might be our large arterials, faster, and also, I shouldn't say faster, also our collectors. Those are priority 1 and priority 2 roadways. We're looking at a strategy in terms of a pavement management plan that will feed our comprehensive transportation plan for the long term. And then we'll update that plan within the next 5 years. So this will be an iterative process.
And then where are we sticking with resurfacing on, I know you mentioned possibly shifting some of the streets, and I guess we're a few years behind LMIG 2022 to the 21 program. But where are we with finding and utilizing funds outside of, I mean, we can't continue to rely on the measly $6 million we get from LMIG grants from the state and call it that our resurfacing program. I think I've mentioned to you and others before that over in Birmingham, Mayor Woodfin's instituted a large resurfacing program. You adjust for population, they're spending 9 times what we are on resurfacing. So what is the plan to bring in and seek out more funding mechanisms to get our resurfacing program to where it needs to be? So I and other council members don't have streets that literally have PCIs in the teens, 20s, and 30s.
So to address that relative to where we are in this point in time, I come from a federal pass-through program, also state and county government. There are federal funds, also state funds that are available to us as long as we go after them. We just heard from the Assembly that there may be an increase to some of the funds we do get from the state, but we're also working with our finance department to think about smart strategic investments and funding instruments that we can use as we get prepared for World Cup. You know, we can take advantage of that opportunity, but also how these funding instruments can be used to reinvest back into the city. So we can't necessarily use, say, impact fees or some of the instruments that have been, I'd say, statutorily assigned already, but we're looking at innovative ways to take advantage of the money that is, and optimize, use of those funds.
All right, we appreciate that, and we definitely don't want to be in a position this upcoming fiscal year and budget season where we're begging and pleading for more funding, and I know we did to get an additional $12 million, $1 million per council district for resurfacing and safety projects, so looking forward to seeing that implemented. You mentioned the World Cup. Next question is around expansion of bike lanes and MUTs. The mayor and myself have some goals for getting certain spots done by the World Cup. One, so people can go from downtown to the river, for one example. But have we, and if not, when will we have a citywide on a bike lane and multi-use trail plan?
So we've incorporated that programming within the update of the CTP. The timing is being scoped now, so I can't give you a definitive timeline. However, we'll take the PASS program, we'll work with our partners to include Propel ATL and our regional partners, stakeholders, and communities to think about, to get feedback, to think about our bike network, but also use modeling, using data to think about origin, destination for the way people travel, and provide alternatives to, our vehicle traditional travel. So that'll be incorporated inside the CTP program. And if I'm not wrong, we're looking at an 18-month development of the plan, which doesn't mean that the products within that, to include bike lanes, have to wait until we publish the plan. So we can also include that within our paving programs. And we're talking to the CIDs. We had a conversation with the CIDs yesterday about how we incorporate the bike lanes and designs into our existing programming.
On the Vision Zero plan, which you touched on, I know the department spent about 6 to 12 months on gathering feedback from the public, and council members, I know, submitted issues as well about dangerous parts of our streets, sidewalks, lack of ADA ramps, lack of sidewalks, intersections that are dangerous. Yet I've had conversations and been told, and obviously saw the draft plan, that the actual Vision Zero plan, or at least what's been delivered to us so far, it doesn't really address those projects. So what was the purpose of that data gathering? How are you all utilizing that data that people have submitted, where they want sidewalks, they want ADA ramps to be safe, bike lanes, et cetera? What I was hoping to see in that program was to actually draft a plan, short-term, mid-term, long-term, actual improvements to where our, for example, improvements that are on our high injury networks, given that feedback from the public and council members. So I guess the question is, why wasn't that in that plan, and when will that be presented, given the data and the feedback that was given over those 6 to 12 months?
So thank you for that question. I'm going to have Betty Smoot-Madison speak to Vision Zero because it's that important, and she has been leading that for the city.
Good morning, Council. Betty Smoot-Madison, Deputy Commissioner over Strategy and Planning for ATL DOT. Thank you for that question. As you mentioned, we did do a 12-month process in the development of our Vision Zero action plan, and we collected thousands of comments. One venue was through a community input map that we had published throughout the development of the plan. And so we have been utilizing that data to inform a number of our initiatives. One, we're coming up with a traffic calming prioritization policy and process. And so a lot of that input from that community input map has been informing some of that prioritization, as well as LPIs and the installation of those and where those locations are. So we are utilizing that data just to help inform some of the initiatives that we have going on actively.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
One thing I will bring up, since you mentioned traffic calming, because there's been points of discussion about this, especially when we were told, I believe, a cycle ago or so, that we had already exhausted the traffic calming budget for this fiscal year, which is something we asked for increases in every budget hearing we've had. Prior administrations put it at zero, and I believe it was myself and Councilmember Boone brought it back up. But number one, what is the plan to increase that budget? Because I know we have a massive backlog traffic calming. We have a massive backlog of traffic calming issues or projects. And there is a little over $10 million within MAF, which may be identified for what you're talking about. But if the city has studied something and said, hey, this is a safety issue, this is our priority to bring traffic calming to the street, it's incumbent on the city to fund that and to fund that fully. So where are we with addressing that backlog and getting more funding, not just that MAF funding, but year over year general fund funds allocated to traffic calming?
And I may partner with one of my other deputy commissioners on moving forward with the traffic calming contract. But I will speak to the Moving Atlanta funds. Traditionally, we have been more reactive in how we've funded traffic calming. The Moving Atlanta forward dollars were intended to for us to really take more of a proactive approach. And so that's why our team is our data analytics and our Vision Zero team is working with our engineering folks to identify more proactive locations for those to be placed. So looking at speed data, looking at AADTs as well as some of our equity areas to come up with a prioritization for that. We are also overlapping that with the list of traffic calming locations that are coming through from communities and council members and seeing where there's overlap. So some of the requested locations may be coming up on our high priority locations just through our proactive research and data analytics. So there may be overlap that we can fund some of that through the Moving Atlanta forward dollars. But that pot of money was intended for us to really be more proactive. The other, want to speak to that?
Thank you. So, Councilmember, I will just augment some of her points. We have reassigned considerable dollars within our programming towards traffic and safety improvements within the districts. We're reaching out to council members to identify the priorities. However, we're thinking strategically about a new approach to how we're taking a proactive approach to how we deliver on speed reduction and improvements along corridors. So you'll see as part of our paving programs, we brought on a new Deputy Commissioner of Engineering so that we can incorporate greater, sharper designs within our paving program to address some of the speeding challenges. Also, we're thinking about contracting some of that work out so that we're not putting that burden on in-house staff so that we reprioritize. It's just more efficient to outsource some of those general functions within the department. So we've also been talking with our finance department about the funds that are available to us from our existing programming. So I just say that, yes, this will be an ongoing conversation that we'll have with council and also leadership to make sure that we're doing the right thing by the people.
A couple more questions. I'll defer to my colleagues. I'm not going to say much about the SLAs. I know that's been a request of the committee and myself for a while to reflect those on your quarterlies. The only request is track them on your next quarterly, what the quarter you're reporting on now was and where you are the next quarter. I hope we can only go up, so show that and show the improvements that hopefully are coming on those.
I'm sorry, Councilmember, I'm having trouble hearing you. The microphone may not be.
This is a $2 million organization or $2 billion organization, and we can't. You should have been in public safety on Monday. It was quite eventful. The enforcement. So we spend millions of dollars resurfacing these streets, and then we let even city contractors, even city departments, and especially private contractors come and tear them up, and we don't cite them. We don't make them repair it the way our current right-of-way manual states they should, which that should be updated as well, but that's another point. But what does your enforcement team consist of? And if we could, I know there were some comments about, tracking those. I'm not on Chairman Lewis's City Utilities Committee this year, but Watershed has tracked those for us since I believe last year and reports on their number of citations, ones that moved to court, et cetera, because we can't, I want to spend millions of dollars on this resurfacing, but just to see contractors tear it up and not properly repair it, where are we at with that?
Yeah, so
that team?
We've gone through and done an overhaul of our permitting program, and I will say that the restoration portion of our permits has been a priority because we're spending money on challenges with just having capacity for enforcement. So we've overhauled that program and restructured within the department to address it. In your package, you have additional information about how we're going to be tracking that, the approach we're taking to our permitting, and we're also hiring, building capacity in-house, and learning from the other departments. So I will give Deputy Commissioner Smith just a moment to speak to it. I don't want to take that away from him.
Good morning, everyone. Alan Smith, Deputy Commissioner, ATL DOT. Just as Commissioner Cavanagh had mentioned, we did a really big overhaul of our permitting process overall, which we launched actually this Monday in tandem with the Affordable Housing Initiative. It consists of just some very simple process changes. Just from, paperwork standpoint, forms, checklists, that kind of thing, to really focus on the restoration piece, because we know that was where we were really having a lot of issues out in the right-of-way. We're hiring right now. We have some positions that are currently posted online. We have some that are in the pipeline right now for interviews. And we're also partnering with DPW. They actually built a really nice internal application to track violators in the right-of-way, because right now our citation capability is still on paper. So they actually built something really nice internally. So we're working with them just to continue to improve our processes.
All right, looking forward to that. And this last question is either for you or the Commissioner. I think me and other colleagues were taken aback when we saw the story last year that the pothole posse was 3 people. I figured it'd at least be as big as the council. Where is that team now? How big are they? Have we added to that team?
Yes, so we have 4 crews right now, 2 people each, so a total of 8. And you can see in the numbers, we're doing, well beyond the amount of requests that we receive. We're now in a stance where we can actually do more proactive potholes. So yes, we have 4 crews right now.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Cavanagh.
Okay, thank you, Chair Hill. Councilmember Hillis, and we are moving on to Councilmember Faroki.
Yeah, for the record, Merriam-Webster defines posse as a large group, often with a common interest. So you may either need to rename the pothole posse or turn it into a large group.
I know it was coming.
A few questions about specific projects. One is on the batch 1, batch 2, moving land forward list. I've looked over this list like 4 times while we've been talking. I could swear there's a Euclid Avenue project as part of the moving Atlanta forward batch 1, 2, 3, somewhere in there that I moved further up in exchange for the Central Park Place Safe Street. And I don't see the Euclid Avenue. It may be called something else, but I just don't see it anywhere. And I'm curious if someone could speak to where that project fits in the moving Atlanta forward.
If I'm not mistaken, that is the Inman Park neighborhood improvements.
Okay.
Which we're closing out soon. Neighborhood improvements.
I saw it somewhere, but I don't see it. But okay, great. Which makes sense. It's on that side of Moreland and Inman Park. Okay, terrific. And then, I was struck. I know this is probably like a dog with a bone, but this slide with renewed T-SPLOST 1.0 projects that are still not complete. They're all in engineering and design. Is pretty. Not to be dramatic, and politicians are drama go hand in hand, but this is pretty damning that we have this many projects from the first T-SPLOST from 7-8 years ago. They're still sitting around, and I counted 11. Not all of them are specific to my district, but my district touches them in some way. And I appreciate the urgency and what seems like organization around getting the moving Atlanta forward projects moving, which is great. I think that urgency and action comes because we've done such a bad job with T-SPLOST 1.0, but. I don't know. My question is more of a complaint, I suppose. This makes it tough for us to go back to voters. We got T-SPLOST 2.0 moving Atlanta forward through, but when you got 20, 25 projects, some of them are pretty significant. Some of them are underway. DeKalb Avenue's on here, et cetera. But this is a silly question because they all have different timelines, but like, when is this list going to be zero?
So
We're coming in on a decade pretty soon.
absolutely, absolutely. And I see the stairs across the dais. So, I will not get defensive about where Atlanta DOT is now. I mentioned that we are moving forward as the city is moving forward, coming out of a very challenging time. Many of these projects are signal type projects and smaller projects in nature, but we're starting to build momentum in terms of working with the contracting community, which the relationship hasn't always been great. Working with our design community, and we brought on 14 design engineering firms to help us move this along. So this is not 2016, 2022. This is 2023, and this organization is laser focused on moving us forward. We're putting contracts out. We're doing triple duty in terms of design and delivery. And I have heard the frustrations and understand the frustrations, but not until we deliver will we convince you of how serious we are. My staff, I know they take a beating, but they are working their butts off. Changing culture is one of the most challenging parts of any organization, and we're putting systems and processes in place to try to make that happen. So I totally understand the frustrations, and I just don't want this to turn into another session of beating up ATL DOT, because we are moving this thing forward. So, Councilmember, I welcome the opportunity to talk about the list and how we can work towards accelerating. And but we have a PR job to do, and I
get it.
Appreciate it.
A lot of talking happens, right? I think all of us want to see shovels in the ground, and I don't.
And you're seeing shovels in the ground. I don't want you to get the impression.
I don't say that flippantly. I've come to learn about all the things that have to happen before a shovel hits the dirt. I know it's a long pipeline with a lot of moving parts that inevitably take time to get done. I don't diminish that at all. But I will take this conversation further with y'all offline about some of these projects, but I do want to raise one before I turn to DeKalb Avenue, and I'll close out with DeKalb Avenue. But you stood before us in the last couple months about Baker Street 2A and indicated that you weren't going to 2A it anymore under I think the vote was executive decision on your part. So I talked to the law department, because I don't think you can make an executive decision to 2A it. That this is, the voters voted on this, it has to get done. You can use other money to make other improvements along that corridor to make it safer or improve curbside management, whatever it may be. But the money that the T-Splost allocated for Baker Street 2A has to be used for that purpose. And so I guess my question to you is, are we gonna have the gumption to do it? And if not, what happens to those dollars?
That's a very loaded question. I will say, at this time, we're not converting it to two-way. We're evaluating the best approach that supports the community and the corridor and the entire network in the downtown community or network. So as that evolves, we'll make sure that we coordinate. But I will say that I didn't want to give the impression that we will use the money for something different, because we're not in a position to do that.
Right, so just to be clear, the improvements and the changes that the department and the administration is comfortable making on Baker Street are not going to be funded with these dollars, A.
Or, yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And B, which I've yet to receive an answer to, and it's probably a question for the law department, not to be answered today, but if you don't spend money that voters have allocated for a specific project on that project, what happens to those dollars? You don't have to answer it now, because I don't want you to misspeak and then we get tied up.
Thank you.
Right. But we have to answer that question, because all signs, I think wrongly, but all signs point to us not having the backbone to two-way Baker Street. And so these dollars can't be spent for anything else. Do they go back to voters? Can they be reallocated in some way that doesn't violate law? I think we have to answer that question, because this is the only scenario that's presented itself in this way. We need to figure it out.
I'll just say that I mentioned it's a loaded question because there was other funding in partnership with the ARC and other partners that play into how this money will be spent. So it's a bit more complex than just potentially returning money. But, are we turning Ivan Allen into a two-way because of recommendations that we get? We have to make sure that we take a comprehensive look at where the city's going, where we are in this point in history, and I absolutely respect the history associated with Baker Street.
And then I'd like to finish up on DeKalb Ave. The document indicates that the adjustments to the catch basin tops and the sewer manholes, that work is ongoing, and it will be complete next month, according to this, by March 2024.
If that wasn't updated, we should be complete by spring.
Look,
I'm sorry, maybe that's not updated. In your other packet, you should have DeKalb Avenue and an update for.
Yeah, I know, right? So I guess my question is, when will that DeKalb Avenue Phase 1?
Valentine's Day.
Yeah. This dinner conversation isn't leading to that conclusion, Commissioner Cavanis. Yeah, we're not there yet. So I guess when will Phase 1 be complete?
Yeah, the project will be complete this spring.
I'm sorry?
The project will be complete this spring. There are other punch list items to include the grates and some of the bike lane, for curbing, for instance, that need to be worked out. So this spring, for me to say next month would be ingenuine.
Okay. And that's what this deck says, so, just be careful what you give us. So when you say it'll be done this spring, everything you just described will be done this spring?
Yes.
Okay. I have two quick things, and then I'll yield my time. One is on DeKalb Avenue, just outside my district at Arizona Avenue, as you're coming westbound into the city, the vehicle traffic, as you cross the intersection, a bike lane appears, and vehicles inherently, just based on how this road is structured, end up driving in the bike lane until they adjust. Can y'all look at that and see if there's some intervention that makes that a safer transition as you cross that intersection?
Absolutely, and we'll work with Propel ATL. We've received other comments, so that's part of that refinement of the project. You put it on paper and design, but you get out in the real world and you find that you have some realistic changes that need to happen.
And then my last question is, I had some complaints from some residents who, they live adjacent to DeKalb Avenue, and I think it's a private street. It's not a public street, but it's right by Fire Station 12, and they've had trouble getting in and out of their complex. Can I do a site visit with someone just to go look
Absolutely.
at it? I haven't gone to see it in action, but who should I contact in your department for the site visit?
You can please contact me directly, and we'll get a site visit scheduled. I'm in your area, and we can take a ride down. I'll bring coffee.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Faroki. So I wasn't cheating off his paper, and I actually got stuck on the same page too with the T-Splice 1.0. I don't think you're ever going to be able to come in here without me, talking about how long I've been on Cascade Complete Streets and how long I've been involved in that process, even before being on council. Heavily involved in making sure that, I picked out colors of the benches and all of that. So I just want to always reiterate how much angst I have when I start hearing us talk about Phase 2 or moving on to the, moving Atlanta forward. I too want to move on. You have no idea. I want to move on. I really do. But I want to leave nothing behind. I want to move on in proper sequence. Okay. So that has always been my determined factor. That's where this whole community outreach every 3 to 6 months was born out of. Just making sure we stay on point and understand the importance of completing one thing before we move on to another. And my hope was that means that we will expedite the completion of the first T-Splice so that we could hurry and get to number 2, so we'll be on time and everyone will finish and we'll all be in a good place. So that's still my hope, actually. It is. And that's why we can hash out the details in March with our community-faced meeting. I'm happy to do that because I do have a couple specific spots that I'd like to speak to, but I can wait because I do know that we're actively working on it and that we already have a meeting scheduled before the community. My other question was around, well, actually, it's just a comment. It's around the fare free. We've been at you so long this morning that you actually talked about some really good stuff. This packet is lofty, and you talked about good stuff, and I was very in tune with the fare free MARTA pilot, and that the legend that you put over to the side with the image here that's color coded about who was taking those free fares for the 40,000 MARTA trips. It shows what we already know. South and west of Atlanta, we're taking those trips. People are going to work from Southwest Atlanta. And so that free fare was taken advantage of from my constituents, along with looks like a lot of tin, but we are bright blue, dark blue, because that's where people are riding from. And we always just need to keep that top of mind. That's why Niskey Lake needs to be addressed quickly. So I just wanted you to know that this right here was very telling, and it's just what we already know. We've seen these type of charts so many times now. We know where our riders are coming from, and these rides are for work. Like, they're not for the Falcons game or the Hogs game or all of those fun things. They're going to work, and they're trying to get to their doctor's appointments and really important issues. So I'm glad that we did this pilot. I think it's going to pan out where we're going to have a partnership with MARTA, because this was clearly a positive step in the right direction. So that's me. I'm going to move on now to Councilmember Waits.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I appreciate you. I think Councilmember Hillis has already spoken to the citywide cameras in the parks. I would like a breakdown from Commissioner Cutler in terms of where those are located throughout the city by district, and I'd love to chat about that offline. In addition to, we have the $32 million in improvements to the parks, and I noticed Pittman Park is on there. So I'd like to know where these locations are by districts, and I'm specifically interested in districts 9 through 12, which I'd like to discuss offline. I wanted to bring to your attention, I read an article in the AJC where I guess the APS boasted the millions of dollars they've raised through the red light camera program. And I've raised this issue in this committee before, that I believe that the program may be flawed and issuing tickets erroneously. I've received 2 of those, and they're referencing Gideon's Elementary, which is not on Pryor Road. So I'd like to look into that. I've already spoken with the solicitor, Erica Smith, over in Mr. Carter's office. So I'd like to chat about that. And I'd love to hear more about the project manager positions in terms of the payment increases that we were talking about in terms of how we would attract talent to the city of Atlanta. This is a friendly question to you, Mr. Cabanis. I noticed that in your department that the salaries range from 210, 170,000, 160, 320, 180, 160, 137, 160, 150, 80, 81, 150. And my question is, it's my understanding that we were able to increase the salaries of the leadership by use of the extra help positions. And so can you speak to how you decided to remove the extra help positions to increase the salaries of all of the leaders in the DOT department?
So I can. The opportunity to provide a more detailed explanation related to extra help in a growing organization that required a lot of strategic work. I would definitely like to introduce or include Department of Human Resources in that conversation, just so that we don't miss anything. We brought on a number of leaders to manage their shops or businesses. So we have business lines, and it's consistent with what we find in DOTs around the country, especially city DOTs. So that does not, that's not meant to, underrepresent all of the work that we've done for the 65% of those who are in the field and work in the field. Retention has been a challenge, although our attrition's, thereabouts 13%. But we've done a lot to try to retain and make ATL DOT a place that people want to come work at. So while, those upper salaries may stand out, there's been about 65% of our workforce that's been reinvested into. We've recently had the increase, and there's also promotional opportunities that we've created by creating that structure. So
I interject for a moment. It's a friendly conversation.
I understand.
I don't have an issue with that. My concern is the fact that we're paying our project managers to $58,000. And my hope is if we are going to do these increases to attract the talent and retain our staff, I'm fine with that. But again, we're talking about almost a dozen positions that are nearly $200,000, which I'm okay with that. I think it's terrific. Another question, what positions were funded in FY 23 and 24 that are now defunded? And we can talk about this offline. And how many extra help positions were created in 23, 24?
Can I get that information back to you, just because I don't have it here in front of me? There's detail related to those answers.
Can I just send you the list? It's very lengthy, and in lieu of time, I want to be respectful to everyone. But the questions are surrounding the attrition rate, which I notice is extremely high. And so my thought is, if we are paying, this number of positions that have these extra salaries or extremely high salaries, I would just hope that we're also looking at middle level management as well as lower level positions to ensure that we're able to retain those individuals as well. And lastly, what is the recovery plan regarding project delivery, given that we're already behind?
Mm-hmm. In your package, I've included our strategy for how we plan to hit the mark. That includes the hiring of project managers. Our target is 25. We should be at 25 in March. We've also engaged with our consulting community to bring on help to accelerate the process, and also outreach with the construction industry to try to get these projects moving and out the door and shovels flying.
Okay, I'm going to email you the list of questions that we can discuss further offline. And again, I thank you for your responsiveness recently regarding the senior concerns over at the high rise. And I appreciate the work that you do for us in the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, I think we are all done with ATL DOT. I want to thank you for spending your Valentine's Day doing this with us. Sorry?
Not a second round.
Oh no, we're good. We are all done. And thanks again for this particular packet also, the one that says Council Member Transportation Committee Requests and Responses. I think this is like a first of its kind. I don't know if any other departments have given us something so detailed that we can refer back to. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you all.
All right,
Happy
and with
Valentine's.
that, we are going to proceed on to our regular agenda. And let me see. Put me on that. Oh, here we go. All right, so we'll start now with ordinances for second read.
Item number 1, 24-01045, an ordinance by the Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Department of Transportation to accept grant award funds from the Georgia Department of Transportation for the construction of CS 434 Lenox Road from CS 3369 East Paces Ferry Road to State Road 141, identification number listed herein, to authorize the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2024 budget by adding two anticipations and appropriations such grant award funds in the amount of $8,594,878.00, and to enter into any necessary agreements with project partners, including the Georgia Department of Transportation, for the implementation of grant acceptance and participation and for other purposes.
Move approval by Juan, second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Okay, 5 yeas, 0 nays. This ordinance is approved.
Item number 2, 24-01046, an ordinance by the Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept funds and amend the fiscal year 2024 budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations from the fiscal year 2022 Reconnecting Communities Pilot Grant Program in an amount not to exceed $1,100,000.00 for the funding of planning for the Stitch, and to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into agreements with the United States Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, and the Georgia Department of Transportation for the implementation of grant acceptance and participation and for other purposes.
Second.
Move approval by Juan, second by Faroki. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open.
Oh, okay. You want to wait? Okay.
Vote is closed.
4 yeas, 0 nays. This ordinance is approved. Councilmember Juan.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This is for the department. It'll either be transportation or for finance. I just want to confirm, I realize this is a pass-through of funds from the government to the city to this project. I want to confirm that there's so far no other city or government funds that we're collecting and passing through to the other two big interstate covering projects. So if someone could get back to me sometime that, or they know the answer. And by that, I mean the Buckhead 404, I believe, and then the Midtown Park project.
Apologies, I had to step out. Betty Smoot-Madison, Deputy Commissioner over Strategy and Planning for ATL DOT. Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, I just want to confirm, of the 3 different interstate covering projects, for lack of a better term, so far, the Stitch is the only one that the city has committed any funds to, or we've even started applying for grants to pass through our funds, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so it was moved and second. Please prepare the vote.
The vote,
Oh, we did. Sorry. All right, so we're moving on to number 3. Thanks.
Item number 3, 24-01047, an ordinance by the Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept funds and amend the fiscal year 2024 budget by adding 2 anticipations and appropriations, awarded funds from the fiscal year 2023 Highway Infrastructure COVID Supplemental, 23 USC Section 133B funding program in an amount not to exceed $2,000,000.00 for the funding of planning engineering for the Stitch, and to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into agreements with the United States Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, and the Georgia Department of Transportation for implementation of grant acceptance and participation and for other purposes.
Move approval by Juan, second by Faroki. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Okay. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This ordinance is approved. Number 4.
Item number 4, we do have a request to bring forth an amendment. The amendment does change the caption, so.
Motion to bring forth the amendment. Motion to amend. Is there a second? Second by Hillis. Please prepare to vote.
Vote is open.
What is the
He's gonna
actual?
read it.
Oh, you're reading it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Please read the amendment.
An ordinance by Councilmember Keisha Shawn Waits as amended by the Transportation Committee to rename Finley Avenue Northwest to Brittany Glover Drive Northwest, and to waive certain provisions of Section 138-8 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and for other purposes.
So this particular ordinance does require a public hearing. Correct. Councilmember, would you like to speak on this paper? Okay.
Madam Chair, it would be my pleasure. I hate that Brittany's mom is not in the room. She's actually meeting with some other leaders over here in Phoenix. It's my understanding when we did the Leonard Tate street naming, we moved that on condition, or am I out of order? Or should we wait?
We held it until we did some work on it.
Okay, sounds good. And thank you so much for your indulgence.
Okay, so it requires a public hearing. Is it your preference that we hold it now, hold the paper? Versus
Public hearing is.
Yeah, so we're going to hold and have our public hearing. Let's do that. So move to hold for public hearing. Second by Waits. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
Okay, 6 yeas, 0 nays. This ordinance has been held. Number 5.
Item number 5, 24-0-1055, an ordinance by Councilmember Byron D. Amos to amend the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, Aviation, Article 3, Division 3, Subsection 1, Section 22-115, so as to provide restrictions on exceptions to authorized airport access privileges and for other purposes. Madam Chair, there is a request to substitute this item.
Okay. Second, move to substitute by Juan, second by Overstreet. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
The substitute is before us. Do we vote on that, or does someone speak to this? Okay, so move approval on substitute, second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote. Is someone speaking to this? I don't have a name here.
Yeah, I don't either.
Please, Aviation. Mr. Smith, how are you?
Good morning. Michael Smith, Deputy General Manager, Department of Aviation. This ordinance removes some conflicting language in the section regarding access to the airport. As the airport prepares to change the hours of operation at the, from 11:30 to 4:30, where we close, we're going to have 24/7, where we restrict access to the airport to ticketed passengers, those meeting or greeting passengers, those who are employed, and those others having ability to do business at the airport.
Okay, so the substitute is before us, and we've already voted. So it's 6 yeas, 0 nays. Thank you very much for that. The ordinance is approved as substituted. Number 6.
Item number 6, 24-0-1061, an ordinance by Councilmember Amir Faroqi requesting the mayor or his designee to install no parking signs to restrict parking on the north side of Angier Avenue Northeast from Glen Iris Drive Northeast to Garden Park Drive Northeast, and to waive City Code Section 150-92 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and for other purposes.
Move approval by Faroqi, second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open.
We are... Okay,
Vote is closed.
Okay, 6 yeas, 0 nays. That ordinance is approved. And we're moving on to resolutions. Number 7.
Item number 7, 24-R3175, a resolution by Councilmember Mary Norwood requesting the mayor or his designee to make the intersection of Powers Ferry Road Northwest and Tuxedo Terrace Northwest an always stop-controlled intersection and for other purposes.
Okay.
Sorry, there is a request to hold on behalf of the sponsor for this.
On behalf of the sponsor. Okay, so move to hold. Second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. This item has been held. Number 8.
Item number 8, 24-R3176, a resolution by Councilmember Mary Norwood requesting the mayor or his designee to install traffic calming devices on 26th Street Northwest between Peachtree Street Northwest and Alden Avenue Northwest and for other purposes.
Second. Move approval by Juan, second by Overstreet. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is approved. Number 9.
Item number 9, 24R3178, a resolution by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone requesting the Commissioner of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to conduct a traffic study on West Ontario Avenue Southwest, Atlanta, Georgia 30310, to determine the need for any safety improvements such as speed monitors and for other purposes.
Move approval. Second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is approved. We're at number 10.
Item number 10, there is a substitute that changes the caption to this item, so can we please bring that forth first?
Motion to bring the substitute forward. Second by Juan. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Oops. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before us.
Item number 10, 24R3179, a resolution by Councilmember Andrea Boone as substituted by the Transportation Committee to add funding to the 90-day extension of Special Procurement Agreement SP-S121010-1, Hope Atlanta Outreach Transportation and Referral Services with the Travelers Aid of Metropolitan Atlanta Incorporated, DBA Hope Atlanta, on behalf of the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, effective February 11th, 2024 through May 10th, 2024, in an amount not to exceed $140,000.00. All controlled work would to be charged to and paid for account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Move approval as substituted. Second by Juan. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is approved as substituted. Number 11.
Item number 11, 24R3180, a resolution by council members Andrea L. Boone, Dustin Hillis, and Michael Julian Bond authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a cooperation agreement with the Fulton Industrial Community Improvement District on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation, and to authorize the Fulton Industrial Community Improvement District to procure, construction, and design, to maintain contracts, and to be independently responsible for all aspects of construction and project management of transportation infrastructure projects where the Commissioner of the Atlanta Department of Transportation determines the criteria therein have been met, and for other purposes.
Move approval by Juan, second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. This item has been approved. We're on number 12.
Item number 12, 24R3181, a resolution by council members Dustin Hillis, Michael Julian Bond, and Matt Westmoreland authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for a fiscal year 2024 U.S. Department of Transportation Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity Discretionary Grant for the West Side Park Multimodal Access Project in an amount not to exceed $16,000,000.00 to partner with the Westside/Howell Mill Community Improvement District for application preparation and submittal and for other purposes.
Nice. Move approval. Second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is approved. We're on 13.
Item number 13, this item does have an amendment that changes the caption.
I motion to bring forth, I motion to amend. Second by Juan. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Move approval as amended. Second by Juan. Please prepare the vote.
Item number 13, 24R3187, a resolution by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari as amended by the Transportation Committee, requesting the mayor or his designee to make the intersection of Warren Street Northeast and Trody Street Northeast an all-way stop-controlled intersection, to request the Atlanta Department of Transportation to install stop signs at the intersection and for other purposes.
Thank you. Move approval as amended. Second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is approved.
Item number 14.
14.
24R3188, a resolution by Councilmember Liniana Bakhtiari requesting the mayor or his designee to install traffic calming devices along Warren Street Northeast between the intersections of Warren Street Northeast and Hosea Williams Drive, and Warren Street Northeast and Trotty Street Northeast, and for other purposes.
Move approval by Juan, second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. Oh, sorry. May all council member please vote? Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is approved. Number 15.
Item number 15, 24R3233, a resolution by the Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an amendment to FC 5463, the agreement for Concourse C food and beverage concessions at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport for Package 3 with Host plus ATL Chefs JV 3 LLC to add a restaurant concept and location to the leased premises and to exercise the 3-year renewal lease term option effective October 31st, 2026 through October 30th, 2029, and for other purposes.
I recognize Councilmember Juan.
Yeah, I would like to hear from Aviation on this one. I just want to understand the process by which, when the space came up, what sort of evaluation process went into the decision to extend this offer to the current vendor?
Well, I'll have to ask our concessions folks, but generally, when we look at what has been provided by the vendor and the amount of revenue we've received, whether or not they've been providing good service to us, those are the considerations that we go in to determine whether or not we are going to extend it. And this vendor has provided great service, for us for this period of time, and the agreement does provide for the extension periods, and so that's why we're moving forward with it.
I'm going to move forward on condition of getting that response before Monday. The only reason is I just want to make sure there's full transparency whenever these opportunities come up, that we understand how the internal decision is made to offer it to one vendor versus another, just so that we don't get any sort of pushback later from others that say, oh, we didn't know about it had we known about it X, Y, or Z. So,
Okay, thank you. That's fair. Second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote. Moved by Juan, second by Hillis.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nay. This item is approved on condition. We're on to number 17.
Number 16.
16.
Item number 16, 24R3234, a resolution by the Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to exercise a single renewal option for FC 5465, agreement for the Atrium and Concourse F food and beverage concessions at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with Host Plus ATL Chefs JV 5 LLC on behalf of the Department of Aviation for a period of 3 years, effective October 31st, 2026 through October 30th, 2029, and for other purposes.
Move approval second. Move approval by Juan, second by Overstreet. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is approved. Number 17.
Item number 17, 24R3235, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for contract number listed herein for airside electrical on-call at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with Brooksbury Hine and Associates, Haney and Associates, and for in an initial amount of $1,500,000.00 for fiscal year 2024 on behalf of the Department of Aviation. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Move approval by Juan, second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is approved. Number 18.
Item number 18, R24R3236, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for the project number listed herein for the Ramp 21 repavement replacement at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with C.W. Matthews Contracting Construction Incorporated on behalf of the Department of Aviation in an amount not to exceed $28,462,268.89. All services will be charged to and paid from PTA AEO/FDOA as listed herein and for other purposes.
Move approval. Second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open.
Six yeas, 0 nays. This item is approved. Number 19.
Item number 19, 24-R3237, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement number listed herein for airfield driver training simulators with Environmental Tectonics Corporation at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport on behalf of the Department of Aviation for a term of 5 years with one 3-year renewal option in an amount not to exceed $951,715.37, expressly contingent upon the approval and adoption of the budget for fiscal year 2025. All contract work will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Madam Chair, there is a request to hold this item by the Department of Aviation.
Move second. Moved by Juan, second by Overstreet. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open.
Six yeas, 0 nays. This item is held. Number 20.
Item number 20, 24R3238, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to retroactively consent to the agreement of contract FC 10278, fuel storage facility and fueling facility operation and ground support fueling management, name change from Lewis Berger ATL Fuel Services, a joint venture, to Vassar Global Solutions, and to execute all assignment documents for the services and to exercise all renewal options. On behalf of the Department of Aviation, at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport for a term of 1 year, effective February 28, 2024 through February 27, 2025, in an amount not to exceed $7,500,000.00. All contractor work to be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Move approval. Second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is approved. Number 21.
Item number 21, 24R3239, a resolution by the Transportation Committee on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to correct Resolution 23R3617, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on June 5th, 2023, and approved per City Charter Section 2-403 on June 14th, 2023, to revise the funding sources listed therein and all other parts of the legislation to remain unchanged and for other purposes.
Move approval by Juan, second by Hillis. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. That item is approved. This brings us to dual items referred. We, as of yesterday, Office of Policy and Research did not receive any items for referral to the Transportation Committee, so that takes us to items being held in committee, and we are going to bring up 3 items held in committee, and this would be number 30. Let's bring up 30. So first, I would like to request that we bring forth the substitute, and then we'll deliberate. Second by Juan. Please prepare the vote. You want to read the caption?
Yes.
Okay.
Item number 30, 24-01011, an ordinance by council members Jason Dozier, Amir Faroki, Michael Julian Bond, Matt Westmoreland, Howard Shook, Andrea L. Boone, Justin Hillis, Jason Winston, Mary Norwood, Liliana Bakhtiari, Marcy Colley Overstreet, and Byron D. Amos, as substituted by the Transportation Committee, to amend Chapter 150, which are the Traffic and Vehicles, Article 2, General Rules of the Vehicle Operation, Section 150-74 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to prohibit right turns on red lights at all intersections within downtown Atlanta, Midtown Atlanta, and Castleberry Hill, where appropriate signage indicates such prohibition and for other purposes.
Okay, we have before us the Honorable Council Member Jason Dozier would like to speak on his paper.
You guys, Madam Chair, we have to vote on bringing forth the substitute.
Oh, okay, well, move to bring forth the substitute.
Yeah, the vote is closed. We're good.
Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before us. We have before us also Councilmember Jason Dozier. Please speak to your paper. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you, committee. Happy Valentine's Day. I come to you all in the name of love this afternoon. Just with regards to this legislation, I know we just did a substitute. I know the legislation was introduced a couple of months ago, and one of the things we wanted to do is work with the department to make sure that we had an implementation strategy so that it wasn't burdensome for the department, wasn't burdensome for the city, wasn't burdensome for our community members and constituents. As I stated, when the legislation was first introduced, at the end of the day, we're just trying to save lives. Pedestrians are our most vulnerable road users, people just trying to cross the street to get their kids to school, trying to get to the park, trying to go to the store. And where you have communities like downtown and Midtown and Castleberry Hill, these are our communities with the most amount of pedestrians in the city of Atlanta. And it only gets more when you have big events, whether it's Dragon Con, whether it's the Pride Parade, whether it's Georgia Bulldogs won the SEC championship. We have a lot of people in these communities, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to implement policies that's going to protect our most vulnerable road users. I know we have a lot of progress. I know we had the Transportation Department talk about all the infrastructure projects coming as part of Moving Atlanta Forward. I know we have some Renew Atlanta projects, infrastructure projects that we still have to implement. This is relatively low-hanging fruit. This is, in a way, saying that by just making this tweak, we give pedestrians a little bit more space in the crosswalk. Just the other day, I had an event over at the Metro Atlanta Chamber, walking down Peachtree Street, and at Andrew Young International Boulevard, which is a one-way street. There was a bus in the middle lane. A woman was turning right onto Peachtree, or trying to turn right at the red light, and I was in the crosswalk. And she didn't see me because the bus was blocking the line of sight. This legislation would have prevented that sort of encroachment from happening. And while I would be happy to take one for the team to help bolster the narrative about why this is important, I'm glad I didn't get hit by a car, but I know you road users every single day are dealing with these sorts of close calls, even if it doesn't always show up in the data. So one of the things that was very interesting to me, and Rebecca Cerna during her public comment earlier shared this, ATL DOT looked at crash data going back from 2013 to 2022, so 10 years of crash data. And looking at a sample of 65 crashes, 40% of those crashes were right turn on red situations. Applying that to the whole city of Atlanta, if you look at all of our crash data, that's over 3,000 crashes that would have been right turn on red, and using that kind of sampling technique. And so at the end of the day, this is something that I feel strongly is not only going to save lives, but really going to change how pedestrians experience our city. And one of the things that I've thought a lot about, I know we have some work to do around the high entry network. We have a lot of work to do in other parts of our city, but by focusing at least on these 3 communities, it's narrowly tailored, so we'll be able to get some really good data very quickly in these very high pedestrian areas. And one of the things, too, that I thought was interesting in some of the data we've seen across the country, even outside of the enforcement piece, just posting up signs, 90% compliance rate with people complying with no turn on red signs, 62% reduction in encroachment in the crosswalk. So I think this is something that is relatively low fruit, it has a big impact, and I hope you all will support this endeavor.
Excellent comment, Councilmember. I'm going to be in support of it. So we will start with the queue of question or comments. Councilmember Waits.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dozier, you and I have had an opportunity to speak offline, and I certainly respect the work that you're doing in terms of saving lives and addressing the challenges that we have with keeping pedestrians safe. I've spoken at length in this committee as well as with you, including Rebecca Serna, who's also a transportation advocate, in terms of my concerns regarding unintended consequences. And so for that reason, respectfully, I'd like to abstain from this particular vote. But again, I thank you for your advocacy, and I thank you for bringing the legislation. Madam Chair, I'd like to be excused. Brittany Glover's mom flew here to meet with us today. We're going to go over to the Capitol and advocate for victims' rights. And so I thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Waits. Next speaker is Amir Faruqi.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Dozier. You know, you and I have worked on this paper together. I appreciate your leadership on it. The majority of intersections that this would affect are in my district, and this is one of the rare, beautiful moments where both residents and businesses are aligned and supporting it, as am I. I think it makes sense to do this in the center city where, as you pointed out, we have the heaviest pedestrian traffic. For the most part, a traditional street grid. So you just see a lot of pedestrian car interactions that happen both during events, but also at 2 o'clock at night, right? I mean, there's just a lot of people out. And so this is, I think, the right thing to do. I will note it does not preclude anyone from tackling no right on reds in other parts of the city. I have other intersections in my district, and I'm sure many of my colleagues do as well, that are no right on red, that aren't in this footprint, but this will create a much safer area that, frankly, has made huge strides in pedestrian safety. We pushed to put in place leading pedestrian intervals on the crosswalk signaling in most of these intersections in downtown and midtown 4 or 5 years ago. That's made it safer. This will make it even more safe. And so I appreciate your initiative, and I'll be supportive, and I'll move to approve.
Thank you. Moving on to Mr. Hillis.
Thank you, Vice Chair Overstreet. Thank you, Councilmember Dozier, for your work on this and your words. I have some questions, but they're actually for ATL DOT. Ms. Deputy Commissioner Madison could come up. As stated, I'm supportive of this legislation and the general concept of it, but what I'm wanting to, I guess, hear from DOT are a few things. Number one, does the city, ATL DOT, have the authority to do this at intersections that involve state routes, or do we have to ask for GDOT's approval on that?
We do. We are required to work with GDOT on those. They would have to issue us an encroachment permit to be able to do any of those installations. So we are coordinating with GDOT on those.
Okay. And then the other thing was regarding our, Councilmember Faruqi mentioned the leading pedestrian intervals that's been done, implemented downtown and midtown, other places. But we obviously have other high injury networks where people are killed. One of mine, was discussed earlier, Donley Hollowell, it's a state route. I know not all of those 20 plus pedestrian deaths that have occurred over the last decade have to do with, people turning right on red, but has the city, through its Vision Zero initiative or otherwise, looked at all of the intersections within the high injury network and initiated that or looked at implementing no right on red at those problem intersections, as well as the leading pedestrian interval at those intersections? Where are y'all with that?
Yes. So one of the actions or strategies within the Vision Zero Action Plan was to develop a policy around implementing no rights on red along the high injury network. So we are, as well as key locations or high priority locations. So we will be looking at those additional locations outside of the downtown and midtown areas as essentially a phase 2 of this process. So we do have staff that's starting to take a look at the rest of the high injury network now. But we will be focused because midtown and downtown are where the densest amount of pedestrians are. We believe it makes sense to start with those areas.
And related to this, first drilling down to where this covers and then looking citywide also, how will this affect intersections in this area that currently have slip lanes?
That's a good question. I may lean on our Deputy Commissioner of Engineering. But we may have to treat those separately. So we are starting to look at holistically all of the different intersections that this legislation would impact. And there may be some locations where we would have to do signal modifications or adjustments and just additional treatments at the intersection. So those we may not be able to group into the larger majority, and we would treat those separately. But I don't know if you have anything. I'm not an engineer, I'm a planner, so I like to leave the engineering stuff to the engineers, but okay, got it, thanks.
I just asked because, I mean, I would eliminate every slip lane in the city today if I could, because I've heard about this concept for years from, well, previously DPW and then ATO DOT, but I'm just not seeing a lot of action. I've actually closed one myself through a project where we just placed Jersey barriers until the CID does a project there. But I mean, just for example, I have multi-use trails, including what will become Silver Comet extension that cross over slip lanes. I mean, that is, or at least will be, one of the highest used trails outside of the Beltline, and not just Atlanta, but the state of Georgia. So it's very troubling that the plans for those have not included elimination of those slip lanes. But it's like to be more action there. Where are we with that? Do you have any comments or feedback on the slip lane citywide?
I think that makes sense. We definitely recognize the conflicts that slip lanes present, especially to pedestrians and other vulnerable users. So that is another action that is within our Vision Zero action plan. So we will be looking at slip lanes across the city to determine the feasibility of closing them.
And just while I have you up here, since we brought it up, what is the next step on the Vision Zero steps?
There's a number of them. So in addition to all of the actions that we actually have in progress to date, there's about 15 or 20. I have a list of those that we can share with the council of what actions are in progress right now, including everything from this no right on red to the LPI implementation to traffic calming and all of that great stuff. So specifically advancing on those actions, looking at funding opportunities. We are looking at the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program to help bring in more additional funding for us to be able to implement a lot of the actions that are in the plan. But to do a public release is really our key next step to be able to release the full document publicly. So we are working on a communication strategy with our comms team and the mayor's office to lay out a plan for getting that out. And yeah, I think just getting the document released publicly and focused on implementation, that's our key next steps. Yeah, so a good point. Deputy Commissioner Lenore Bromberg reminded me about a lot of the capital projects that we are looking at. So just taking the opportunity to utilize those projects to incorporate Vision Zero principles. The Vision Zero action plan actually included an educational guide and tool for designers, for planners and engineers that they can use to identify specific countermeasures that they can include in projects. So whether you're a developer or whether you are a designer with the city or a designer with a private firm, you should be looking at Vision Zero principles and how you can integrate them into your projects. And we'll be doing that internally within ATL DOT with all of our capital projects as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Dozier, and thank you, Vice Chair Overstreet.
Oh, thank you, and thank you, Ms. Smoot Madison. Next speaker, Alex Wan.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And I've had a lot of conversations with the both authors, originating authors of this paper. And I want to open by saying that I'm not questioning the need for strategies that enhance pedestrian safety and protections. And I also support the notion of eliminating right on reds as part of that strategy. Where I'm not ready to vote yes on this yet stems from 5 different things. Number one, if we as a city believe that this is the right policy and strategy, we should be talking about doing this citywide, not in certain areas and piecemeal. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and say, hey, we as a city value this and we should do it citywide. And I know there are political ramifications of trying to push that through versus doing it in pieces, but again, I'm concerned about confusion of drivers of, am I in an area that's covered or not? Now hang on, I'm going to get to that. I see the authors jumping and ready to. Second piece, though, is that I know that is predicated on signage, and even the enforcement of this is predicated on signage being installed. And if that is the way that we feel like we're going to have to communicate to users as to whether they're at an intersection that's covered or zone that is covered or not, the cost of that, I would rather invest that right now. Again, if we made this citywide, let's take those resources, which I understand are somewhere in the $500,000 range. Let's invest those in true infrastructural enhancements that protect pedestrians. Things like islands and crosswalks, things like refuges that actually create structural boundaries or protections for pedestrians. I also am concerned that we are asking ADOT to now add in installing this signage and then going to the trouble of coordinating with GDOT, getting easement agreements. When we just spent the first hour and a half of this meeting complaining about the backlog that they have and other work that they're not getting to, and yet now we're just piling on yet another initiative on top of that. Again, a lot of those Moving Atlanta Forward projects, the infrastructure bond projects include pedestrian protections and enhancements and cycle protections as well. I think we got to focus on that before we keep adding other stuff on. I mean, as an example, there was a pedestrian refuge included in the bond that my predecessor funded, authorized, and we still can't get moving in District 6. So all of a sudden now we're going to divert resources over to putting up signs. I just have a fundamental concern about that. The fourth point is enforcement. This only is, I mean, I know that this is going to be, we're going to trust the drivers to adhere to this, okay? But the ones that don't are probably the ones that are going to create the issue with pedestrians and the conflicts with pedestrians. And yet here we are again having another conversation about capacity and asking our police department to enforce this when we've had conversations in other departments, other committees about what our enforcement looks like from APD. And then finally, I want to go back to the piecemeal conversation because that to me also feels, it doesn't feel strategic or intentional. And it also signals that we value we're willing to protect pedestrians in certain parts of the cities, but not others. Again, if we're going to do this, we need to do it citywide. This also doesn't feel like to me, if it had been based on traffic counts on certain thoroughfares and the feeder streets into that, or even if we tracked kind of the high pedestrian areas, like for example, the Beltline and all the different kind of pedestrian vehicle interactions for that asset. I think that would feel a little more intentional to me versus just we happen to have two zones that are ready to go and agree with it. And so I'm going to loop back to my first point. If we as a city believe in this, which I do, I think we should do it citywide. And I'd be prepared to vote yes if it were citywide today. But I know that y'all aren't sure if you'd have all the votes to get there. But that's why I'm at best going to abstain on this, because I just am not ready to get to yes on this because of all the reasons that I've listed. And I welcome the continued dialogue. And if this passes, maybe, hope maybe that'll spur the rest. It'll spur the citywide conversation. But I just have a lot of reservations about this approach right now. So thank you.
So my cue is actually inaccurate. Councilmember Lewis, you're actually next. I messed up the cue, but I would add maybe we could just call it a pilot program so that it's only in one area. I'm not sure, which we've done many times before for other reasons. But Councilmember Lewis.
And Councilmember, I'm glad you said maybe we can call it a pilot program. That means that this could use some more work. I think 2 weeks ago I was against it, and I did a little bit more research to make sure that I had some facts, particularly when you brought in the numbers. So I know California has a lot of major cities that's taken on this already. So I went to the state of California for most of my research. And so from the state of California in 2011 to 2019, were those the same years you used?
I said 2013 to 2022, but more or less roughly the same years we're talking about.
So in California, they found that drivers turning on red accounted for only 1 pedestrian death per year over that time period. And so in their cities, they actually changed this right on red over that time period, but the state was also making sure they knew that that it was different things. And what they tried to say is that they are not, according to the executive director of America Walks and former mayor of Seattle, Mike McGinn, and the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, they found that, and same thing I think California found, is that they are looking more at bigger vehicles, SUVs, and turning on right on red because they know it's a little bit different. My issue, and also the United Parcel Service, the UPS, our USPS, our United Parcel Service, we're waiting on them to come out with a statement on this because since they've come out since 1970 saying that they only take right turns to avoid left turns because right turns are more safe. In 1970, America came out with a law that says idling at stoplights will compound our energy crisis. I know that we're living right now in a time in which we're planting trees everywhere to make sure that we're keeping it a little bit cooler in Atlanta. I can foresee this happening. And another thing, the fines and fee justice system. They came out with something against this as well. And they said at their conference, they said penalties will fall on lower income drivers. And so my biggest fear is that, I'm always thinking about Deacon Johnny Holloman. My biggest fear is more interaction with the police and citizens of lower income in these areas. We know that the guidelines have changed in the city of Atlanta. They changed so much that sometimes police don't even know the guidelines, right? Like one of our guidelines is if you don't sign a ticket, you will not be arrested. I have confirmed that some police in the city of Atlanta will tell you if you don't sign that ticket, you're gonna go to jail. And so that means they don't even know the guidelines. And so right now I'm a little nervous on doing this in the city of Atlanta because when you say Castleberry Hill, I know we butt up against each other with our districts. And so I'm thinking people won't know, right? So Castleberry Hills to some people may be these streets, to some people it may be one street over. And so I'm just confused that people in our city won't know and there'd be more interaction with the police. And as we've seen just last year with Deacon Johnny Holloman and last week as we've seen police still would threaten you with arrest if you don't sign signatures. So currently I'm a no on this, and I made sure I looked at the states and the cities that have already passed this before I said that.
So, Madam Vice Chair, can I respond?
Yes, please.
So, and thank you both, to Councilmember Warren and Councilmember Lewis. Councilmember Lewis, on several of the items that you shared, I actually allude to several of those pieces in the whereas clauses with the legislation. With regards to the bigger vehicles is absolutely a big part of why there's such an increase in pedestrian injuries and fatalities across the country. Ford F-150 today is a lot bigger than a Ford F-150 20, 30 years ago. smaller sight lines, much narrower windshield, so it's hard to see pedestrians the way you would typically do before. It's the #1 selling vehicle in America, so there's a lot more of those vehicles on the street that you typically see today. That's absolutely an issue that we're trying to figure out ways to address, and this is one of many policies that we're trying to put in place to ensure that regardless of how big your vehicle is, if you have to stop at red, you have to stop at red. And so but duly noted, we try to address that. I will say with the 1% of injuries that you cited, with the one injury that you cited in the California study, one of the biggest challenges that we found as we were researching into this, which is why I was so thankful for the Department of Transportation through their research, finding information on behalf of the legislation, is that the data is really insufficient all over the country. A big challenge is that how we define crashes occurring at right turn on red is inconsistent from state to state. And what the data also doesn't have or show are the near misses, which have a big impact on how pedestrians navigate our communities more holistically. And so where we found a lot of stronger data is in these smaller studies where you actually have someone out there with the camera, with the notepad and the computer, actually taking note of what's actually happening in those intersections. And so some of the data that I cited today actually came out of California as well, in San Francisco, as well as in Raleigh, North Carolina, which did this policy last year, as well as Washington, D.C., which has a citywide policy to what was stated by Councilmember Juan in terms of something that he would like to see. So in those sorts of more narrow studies, yes, we've seen strong positive impact from this legislation for improving quality of life for pedestrians and reducing injuries, particularly in these high traffic areas. What it does is it creates predictability. And I get the concern about the signage. The signage situation in the city of Atlanta is already confusing. You go to every third or fourth intersection in this, whether you're downtown or whether you're in Councilmember Faroki's district at the Krog Street Tunnel, and it says no turn on red, but then you go a block away and then you can turn on red. And so this at the very least bakes in more predictability for motorists across the city. And I get that not everybody coming to the city of Atlanta is going to know that no turn on red is allowed in downtown and midtown, but that's why more signage. And when the legislation actually asked for the Department of Transportation to assist with an education campaign, but part of it is creating some expectations and creating a new normal. And even though it's insufficient to what you're hoping to achieve, Councilmember Juan, this is one of those situations where I'll say don't let perfect be the enemy of good. More signage in more areas gets us closer to what you're trying to achieve in the current status quo that we have today, where outside of City Hall is no turn on red, and then 3 blocks down at Andrew Young International Boulevard, like I shared before, you're allowed to turn on red, and it creates more confusion by leaving things at the status quo. One of the things I'll add too, just to answer something you shared earlier as well, is yes, we need more pedestrian islands. Yes, we need more rapid flashing beacons. Yes, we need wider sidewalks and to fix the sidewalks that we already have. Why not we do all of it together? It's a big part of what we're doing with the LPI program, with the leading pedestrian intervals. It's a big part of why our office alone has spent $1 million on traffic calming across the city of Atlanta, in our district, I should say. By my District 4 folks, I am spending money in our district. Is to be additive to the work that's already being done as part of Moving Atlanta Forward, as part of Renew Atlanta and other projects. And I'll say too, I know this body approved a bunch of always stops and a bunch of traffic calming in other parts of the city. And those are other things that the Department of Transportation are also going to have to take on to improve safety in those communities as well. So I get that this might be another thing, but we're already adding to that plate. And I feel that the department, especially since we're producing a lot of these signs in-house already, we're not having to go through a big procurement to pour concrete or to pour asphalt. I feel confident that the department will be able to get the signs installed and do what they need to do because we're doing a lot of this work in-house. I will say one of the things that I was sensitive to is, hey, this is legislation that does impact the operations of the department, which is why the substitute that you all voted on this afternoon, I don't know if it's morning, it's afternoon now, does allow or gives them through the end of next year. So it's not something. It's not we pass this today and then they have to go out and drop everything to make this happen. They have until the end of next year to implement this policy and this program. So I definitely hear it loud and clear. I look forward to introduce the legislation with you as the lead author for a citywide no turn on red prohibition. But I do think that this is a strong first step in moving us in the direction that the city has long needed to go, considering Georgia is one of the top 10 worst states for pedestrian injuries and fatalities. In Atlanta alone, in the last decade and a half, we've had over 3,000 people impacted by traffic violence. And so this is a big step in the right direction, and I hope you all will consider the support.
Oh, of course, you still have the mic.
So I would say that made sure I did a little bit more research as we were speaking. New York City, as we know, they don't allow right turns on. It is top 19 city in America for accidents and fatalities. I made sure I looked that up right now as we was talking, and there's no turn on right on. As a matter of fact, what they do is they have instituted a way to allow you to turn on red now. And so they actually have more people in the city putting up new signs that say you can actually turn red here. And they have the ban for citywide. So for them to be going the other way, it just seems a little different for me. And with us being top 10 and them still being top 20, number 19, it lets you know that even though they have this, citywide is not working. We're a much smaller city, less traffic. They have much better public transportation system than us. And so even if they would probably be higher if they didn't have that transportation system that they had.
I will be in, Councilman Lewis, if you don't mind sharing that information with me. I'll be curious to look at it. And the only reason why I bring that up is I don't know if that's the rate of pedestrians getting hurt or killed or if it's the raw number, because New York has the most people in the country. And so I would imagine on a lot of these factors, they will probably be number one in terms of raw numbers, just by virtue of having more people. But I'm happy to dig into it with you and see where there's maybe some opportunities to ensure that future policies that we have as a city is right sized for the city of Atlanta, so that we're not doing things that other cities are trying to undo. So,
and I got that from dmvny.gov. So right from their website, they're talking about it. They're literally talking about it right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that. I will also add, though, that a lot of times I take other cities' data and information with a grain of salt, because it really is not right size for Atlanta always. Sometimes it is, sometimes it is not, but you know, we have to go by our own trends. Councilmember Faroki.
Yeah, one of the first things I learned, oftentimes the hard way, is that referencing a way that New York or Seattle does something is the quickest way to get your paper killed. Much better if you can reference Dallas or Knoxville or Charlotte, right? I've heard a few arguments that are somewhat surprising to me because they don't feel very logical, and I'd say that with all due respect to my colleagues. What's that? This is a policy debate. We can debate it. But this notion that you don't know what to do at an intersection, I find somewhat humorous, because there are no right turn on red intersections in the city today that have a sign that tell you what to do, right? I mean, you know by paying attention as a driver. And likewise, adding signs to these intersections as proposed is uniform with what we exist in today, right? There are signs that tell you no right turn on red intersections across the city today. That will apply to these intersections. And to then argue that we shouldn't do it because we don't want to overburden ATL DOT to ask them to put up signs at a time when the last 2 years we've asked them to put up more stop signs probably than we've ever asked the city to put up, and no one has ever brought up the concern, oh, we don't want to overburden ATL DOT to put up stop signs. To me, is a little bit laughable. It's their job. It's their job to put up signs. It's their job to improve our infrastructure, and to get skittish at a piece of legislation that's going to make our streets safer because of signage concerns doesn't hold water to me. So look, I think approaching it in the center city, as you've done, and I've supported and others have supported, where you have the highest concentration of pedestrian car interactions, where I think, Councilmember Lewis, your question was a good one. I thought your response is also appropriate, which is all that data, which is fair to point to, I think we should rely heavily on data, doesn't capture how it feels to be on the street or the near misses. And we see it at intersections across the city every day. A woman with a stroller has to pull back really quick because the car doesn't see her. That doesn't get recorded, right? But if you have no right turn on red, that interaction doesn't happen. So all that goes to say, look, my motion stands. I hope someone will second it, and we can have this debate at full council on Monday.
Second. But I also, I agree with all of what you said, and I also want to add in that the notion that officer friendly is going to start all of a sudden looking for people to give tickets to because we have new signs up. I don't really agree with that either. And I also think that all of our neighborhoods are not created equally in the city of Atlanta. Like, we really are a city made up of very different neighborhoods. That's what makes us unique. We talk about this all the time. So Midtown does not operate like Southwest Atlanta. Like, they're just different in that way. So I can't say that it's a citywide thing, which I've had to learn, over the years, including the legislation that I have before us right now that I thought would be great citywide in a zoning matter, but it's not, because our neighborhoods are so different. So, for that reason, I am going to be your second, and we are at Mr. Hillis.
Thank you. Vice Chair Overstreet. So I guess my question goes back to probably DOT, probably DC Smith this time. Just going back to some of the arguments that have been made, and I touched on this in the presentation and said I wasn't going to drill down on these SLAs, but you look at SLAs on signages, which I've experienced myself. I've got 4 or 5 emails seeking to follow up on, simple street signs, and if I had $1 for every time I've been told by a commissioner or ex-commissioner that, well, the sign shop is down, I would be a rich man. We look at the signage SLAs, 25%, 56%, 26%, 23%, 49%, and the last one, emergency repair or replacement of signs, 12%. So what is the condition of the sign shop right now? How are they turning out product? What does that crew look like? And because, they are going to take on this big task if this goes forward. And has anyone done an assessment yet of how many signs this is going to be? Because, if you consider a 4-legged intersection, it's at least going to have one sign on each approach, probably, and at the actual intersection. So that's 8 signs per intersection. And these are 3 very large neighborhoods that probably have the most intersections, signalized intersections, of any neighborhoods in the city. So your feedback on the sign shop situation, feeding into these SLAs, and if assessment has been done on the numbers.
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon again. Alan Smith, Deputy Commissioner, ATL DOT, TIM Division. So in regards to the state of the sign shop, it is up and running very well. We have 4 sign crews, which, like the pothole crew, consist of 2 individuals each. So that's a total of 8 people. We have close to 100,000 signs in the city. So that's a lot of signs. If we think about the volume of just routine maintenance requests as signs age and deteriorate on top of emergency situations such as knockdowns and things like that, you could imagine that it's an ongoing, task to try to stay on top of that. As Commissioner Cabinet mentioned earlier, right now we're doing an assessment to see moving forward how we can strategically stay on top of our SLAs, whether it be through onboarding more internal capacity or doing some maybe type of hybrid model where we contract maybe a portion of that workout. In regards to this initiative, I believe Councilmember Dozier said by the end of next year is when. December 31st, 2025. Sure. So, we look at it very similarly to how we implemented the Vision Zero signage throughout the city. We just took a strategic approach and, did little by little to stay on top of that initiative, on top of our routine maintenance. So I feel that we can definitely get it done in that time frame, but there is a larger effort to address the SLAs going into this budget season.
And specific to this legislation, is there been an assessment of how many signs would have to be produced to fulfill this, even though the substitute does add another year for this to be implemented? So,
hi, Lenore Bromberg,
months.
Deputy Commissioner of Engineering. And yeah, so the Strategy and Planning Office and Engineering Office have actually been working on that evaluation to determine what that impact might be. We're also at the same time taking a look to see from an implementation perspective what other projects are already ongoing in the areas where we would implement these changes as a part of that project as opposed to a standalone effort. And then once we understand what the implementation plan is beyond those projects we already have on the books, what does that look like? As D.C. Smith said, is that something we handle in-house? Is that something that we would contract out as a secondary effort? And that's all being looked at the same time as we've been helping Councilmember Dozier with putting the legislation together. So we are absolutely looking at it because we understand we've got to keep doing all the rest of the business at the same time that we're looking at this initiative.
And follow up, you stated you're looking at contracting out, I guess, the installation. That relieves the pressure on the crews. Has it been looked at if these signs can be pre-ordered instead of putting it on the sign stock? I mean, this is standard METCD sign, so.
We would be looking at that as well. So from a fabrication perspective as well as implementation, once we understand what that rollout might look like, we look at all of those options to see what the best way is to get the program out in the field.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so Councilmember Lewis, did you want to say something else, or was this, okay, go ahead.
So I appreciate hearing a discussion after that as well. Thank you. The first thing I want to talk about was I think that police will start pulling people over. I think they will actually enforce this. And when you say the word officer friendly, I had to go and look it up to see when did the program actually end. It ended in the late 80s, but when Councilmember Felicia Moore was running for mayor of Atlanta, she thought about bringing back the Officer Friendly program. So Officer Friendly is not in Atlanta right now. It hasn't been here since the 80s. So that program is over. And so once again, the reason why I read the stats earlier, because it talked about how, literally how, according to the Fines and Fees Justice Center and at their conference, they talked about how the penalties will fall on lower income drivers, as we're seeing, and this will happen. And so I know last week we had a state rep, Inga Willis, who quote was, Representative Inga Willis, her quote was, "The worst thing it is to be in Georgia is be poor." And so I'm getting the calls from people because we got the red light, the school stop signs up now, and we're getting calls from people who have multiple tickets. And one person, he works for a Hilton Hotel. He's a driver for Hilton Hotel. He's applying to be a driver with MARTA. So he's a driver. He's getting traffic tickets down Metropolitan Parkway and Pryor Road because he's going 1 mile over the 25, he's going 26. And so he has to reach out to his council member to see if that's something they can work with. That's driving, right? And then we have a right-hand turn on Pryor Road that goes into Slater Elementary School. I drive down Pryor Road every single morning. There's a red light there. It's legit used to help folks make that right-hand turn into the elementary school. And so I know that 1 block after University, which is Slater, is 1 block more is University, 1 block more is downtown Atlanta. And so that's why I'm so nervous about this legislation, because it touches, your district touches my district so close. And so I wanted to say those two. And lastly, so tickets on poor people. Officer Friendly is not in Atlanta. And the last one, when I said people won't know what to do at the lights, I was talking about the police. I know we do have guidelines that have been put out. I can assume that some folks will be at red lights. They will take a right-hand turn, and that it will happen. And the moment that they take that turn, they're going to get pulled over. And I'm nervous that some police officers might not know the guidelines when they pull over young folks who may have an unfortunate situation like Johnny Holloman, who's a more senior person. So it's happening all over, and I'm just a little nervous about more police interaction with folks in the city of Atlanta.
Thank you.
Councilmember Juan.
All right, I'll be quick because obviously the votes are here to move this forward, but I just want to respond to a couple of things as well. I understand this is ADOT's job. I get that. But what this is going to push them to do is prioritize and potentially prioritize over other work in the short term unless they can figure out some magic to get everything done. I hope and I expect that the projects in my district with moving Atlanta forward and Renew that have been delayed that enhance pedestrian safety will not get impacted by any diversion of resources over to this. And I think that's what I'm concerned about. It's not whether I think it's appropriate for ADOT to do it. I just worry about what it squeezes out, and if it does squeeze anything out. The other thing that it's fascinating to me, this conversation about enforcement too, because if we're going to say that we don't think it's going to get enforced, well, doesn't that create additional risk for pedestrians that they get to an intersection, they think everybody's going to abide by the law because there is enforcement, but yet the people who expect no enforcement are going to take the turn and create a potential conflict there. So we got to be careful about the way we talk about the enforcement piece of it, because I also don't want to create a false sense of security out there for pedestrians simply because there's a sign up that may or may not be enforced. And then finally, I agree the nature of pedestrians and vehicle activity is different across the city. But I would say that Peachtree doesn't change that much just because it hits 85. And I would also think that, kind of the westbound Piedmont and the expressway aren't necessarily the magic character defining boundaries as well. I mean, I would say Monroe and Boulevard have very much of the same characteristics. I would say North and Ponce have very much a lot of the same characteristics. So that's what I mean about if we're going to do this, we should do it citywide. But again, this is the kind of policy conversation we should be having, and hopefully, if this passes and we can create a broader policy conversation that it goes citywide, these are issues that we can continue to debate in that context. So thank you. I appreciate you bringing it up. This is good. This is what we should be talking about.
Okay, so looks like our deliberation is concluded. So it's been moved and properly second. We can prepare the vote.
The vote is open. Favorable.
Okay, this ordinance, 3 yeas, 1 nay, 2 abstentions. So it moves forward, approved to full council. We are on our next, we only have 2 more items to pull off Hill. Let's move on to item 34?
35, ma'am.
35.
Item number 35, 24R3108, a resolution by Councilmember Mary Norwood requesting the mayor or his designee to install traffic calming devices on East Conway Drive Northwest, between Northside Drive Northwest and Jet Road Northwest, and for other purposes.
Move approval by Hillis, second by Overstreet. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Okay, this resolution is approved, 5 yeas, 0 nays. Is there one more?
There is one more, Madam Chair. Item number 36.
Number 36.
24R3109, a resolution by Councilmember Mary Norwood requesting the mayor or his designee to make the intersection of East Conway Drive Northwest and Rangetree Lane Northwest an all-weight stop control intersection, and for other purposes.
Okay.
There is a request to file this item by this neighborhood.
Move to file by Juan, second by Overstreet. Please prepare the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
This item is filed, 5 yeas, 0 nays. That brings us to general comment. Does anyone have any general comments for today? Motion to adjourn by Hillis, second by Overstreet. Thank you, everyone, for attending our Transportation Committee.